Chapter 1145. At this moment, the poisonous flames on the giant tail of Daoist Xuanwei's true body burned even more vigorously. After activating his ability, the poisonous flames spread all over his body, turning him into a green flaming man. Under the effects of the poisonous flames, the appearance and cultivation base of Daoist Xuanwei's eternal true body underwent a huge change. First of all, the appearance of his true body had gained many characteristics of a scorpion man. Initially, he was just a human-faced giant with 10 giant tails. Now he had the appearance of a giant fire scorpion. Next was the change in his cultivation base. As the poisonous flames covered his body, Daoist Xuanwei's qi rose sharply again. Initially, he was just at the first-level quasi-saint realm. Now he was at least at the quasi-saint realm with 14 to 5,000 tribulation magic power. It's actually the second stage of the eternal true body. Dragon King Wansheng and the other experts of the foreign races were shocked. Ningfan's eyes also turned solemn. As far as he knew, there were only a handful of people who could achieve the second stage of the eternal true body in the Dharma-ending era. However, to the ancient cultivators, there were quite a number of people who could do it. He did not expect Daoist Xianwei to be one of them. When Ningfan faced Daoist Xianwei just now, even though his cultivation base was at a disadvantage, he actually had an advantage in magic power due to the uniqueness of the cultivation method he cultivated. The total amount of magic power of 13,500 tribulation magic power was much more than Xianwei. It was the main reason why he could fight evenly with Xianwei. However, at this moment, Xuanwei's total amount of magic power surpassed him for the first time, causing his slight advantage to disappear. He was afraid that he would really have to face a tough battle from now on. Perhaps Ningfan's life-killing technique had evoked Daoist Xuanwei's fear towards this technique. Facing Ningfan now, Daoist Xianwei did not dare to hold back at all. He truly used his full strength. Ancient Buddha's lost technique, Flame Force Rush. Daoist Xianwei, whose qi rose sharply, took a step forward. His entire body was engulfed in flames. He directly charged at Ningfan like a burning meteorite. His speed was too fast. It was so fast that Ningfan was already hit by him just as the flames on his body emerged. The destructive force spread across the area. The entire area was filled with the loud sound of the collision between the two experts. Boom Ningfan's true body had a strong defense. Even though Daoist Xuanwei's qi had increased tremendously, his attack still did not break his defense. However, it would be a mistake to assume that Daoist Xuanwei's collision attack was only at this level. The collision was just an aid. Daoist Xuanwei's real purpose was to weaken the golden flames on the surface of Ningfan's body with tremendous force. Then he would use the momentum of the collision to send the poisonous qi around his body directly into Ningfan's body. Poisoning was the key. If Daoist Xianwei does not use this technique, it would take him a lot of effort to break Ningfan's impenetrable true body defense and poison his internal organs. In other words, this flame force rush was actually a poison technique supplemented by collision. It could avoid the surface defense of the enemy and directly attack their internal organs. It was extremely rare. You want to use brute force to force poison into my body? It's a poison-releasing technique that I've never seen before. Ningfan's eyes glowed with green light. He had seen through the essence of Daoist Xuanwei's ancient Buddha ability. While he was flying backwards, Ningfan's unscathed body suddenly let out a muffled groan. He was injured out of nowhere. The injury did not come from Daoist Xuanwei's collision, but from being poisoned. When Daoist Xianwei rammed into Ningfan, a large amount of the poisonous power of the green wave fire poison directly hit Ningfan's vital parts. As soon as the violent green wave fire poison entered his body, it immediately destroyed Ningfan's ancient devil bloodline. If the damage of the green wave fire poison to an ordinary person was 1, then the damage it would cause to an ancient devil would be 10 or even 100. Ningfan's identity as an ancient devil was an advantageous factor in terms of his abilities. Now, however, it had turned into a disadvantageous factor, causing him to be in a passive position when facing the green wave fire poison. Fortunately, he possessed the power of yin-yang poison. Besides, he also used the fire toad saint poison in his body to fight poison with poison. Thus, he was able to temporarily suppress the green wave fire poison that had invaded his body. However, it was just a temporary suppression. It was not something that could be removed in a short period of time. In terms of quality, this green wave fire poison was far inferior to the inherited holy poison of the great sage fire toad. However, in terms of quantity and purity, it was far superior to the ancient holy poison that had less than 10% of its power that day. When both of them offset each other, the lethality of this poison was not any weaker than the drop of fire toad saint poison that day. Moreover, this poison would cause great damage to an ancient devil. Even though Ning Fan managed to suppress the poison power that had invaded his body, the pain and injuries that his body had to endure were still extremely intense. The burning pain in his internal organs was unbearable. That kind of pain was like the internal organs of an ordinary person being directly scorched by a red-hot iron. It was the proof that he was currently suffering from the fire poison. Even though he had tried his best to suppress the green wave fire poison and prevent the poison power from wreaking havoc in his body, he was still severely injured by Daoist Xuanwei's attack. Moreover, if the poison continues to worsen to a certain extent, he might still be poisoned to death by the green wave fire poison, even if he had the poisonous yin-yang poison to protect his life. Ning Fan could not help but admit that Daoist Xianwei, who had unleashed his poison fire and transformed into his second stage, gave him an unprecedented amount of pressure. Fighting against this person was completely like fighting against an old monster on the same level as Xiang Bozi. My chances of winning are slim. The strength of an ancient half-step sage is indeed not something that the half-sage age of Law Doomsday can compare with. Ning Fan's Immortal King Realm cultivation base is still somewhat insufficient in front of such an existence. However, it was also impossible for him to admit defeat obediently. Humph. So it's just a false alarm. I was wondering how terrifying you would be after activating the life-killing technique. That was why I hurriedly used my strongest trump card. However, I didn't expect you to not have comprehended the essence of the life-killing technique at all. You are far from being able to condense the devil-killing samsara power that Lord Mo created. It was me who made a big fuss over a minor issue. As soon as I saw you activating the life-killing technique, I became overly suspicious. I don't need to use the green wave fire poison at all to deal with you. However, since I have already used it, I might as well kill you with the poison in one go. Flame Force Rush. Daoist Xianwei let out a disdainful snort and took another step forward. It seemed like he wanted to activate the Flame Force Rush again to send more poison power into Ning Fan's body. Unfortunately, as soon as Daoist Xuanwei's step landed on the ground, he spurted out a mouthful of poisonous blood without any warning before his body was sent flying. Under the influence of the poison power, the essence qi in his body became chaotic. How would he have the extra strength to knock Ning Fan? He was already very lucky that he did not fall from the sky in a disheveled manner. It was true that he had sent Ning Fan flying with a single move just now. He had also injured Ning Fan with the fire poison. However, at the moment when he sent Ning Fan flying, Ning Fan had also secretly used the poison power of the fire toad saint poison and sent it into his body. The effects of force were mutual. Daoist Xianwei could borrow the force of impact to send the poison power into Ning Fan's body, while Ning Fan could also borrow the force of impact to send the poison power into Daoist Xuanwei's body. The defense of Daoist Xuanwei's physical body was also extraordinary. However, Ning Fan had imitated the method of releasing the poison power of the Flame Force Rush and directly bypassed the surface defense of Daoist Xuanwei's body, sending the poison into his body. Impossible. You actually saw through the method of using the force of the Flame Force Rush to release the poison. You even imitated it and used it against me. Daoist Xianwei found it hard to believe. At the same time, a sense of humiliation rose within him, causing his killing intent to soar. He was so angry that he laughed instead. The art of poison had always been something that he was proud of. He did not expect that he would be plotted against by a mere Immortal King Realm cultivator, using the art of poison. This is just too ridiculous. Unfortunately, the poison you used is just insignificant. It's not even worthy to carry my green wave fire poison's shoes. I only need half a breath to remove the inferior poison from your body. There's one thing that you cultivators in the last cultivation era might not know. I have the legendary myriad poison primordial body. It's just a waste of effort for you to use poison on me. Daoist Xuanwei's face was filled with disdain. He activated his ability and activated the myriad poison primordial qi in his body, trying to forcefully remove the fire toad's poison from his body. When the crowd heard that Daoist Xuanwei actually had the legendary myriad poison primordial body, all of their expressions changed. The myriad poison primordial body was an innate physique that was similar to the innate charming bones. People with this physique were born with astonishing poison resistance, making them suitable to cultivate poison. If they have gone through cultivation, they could even directly neutralize most of the poisons in the world with their physique. Thus, they were known as the nemesis of poison cultivators. The way the crowd looked at Daoist Xuanwei became even more respectful. They inwardly thought that Daoist Xuanwei was indeed an old monster whose name shook the ancient times. He even has such a rare physique. It's really incredible. None of them believed that Ning Fan could use his poison technique to counterattack and injure Daoist Xuanwei. However, the truth was always out of everyone's expectations. Soon, everyone's gaze turned a little strange because of Daoist Xuanwei's next action of detoxifying the poison. Dissolve. It was the sound of Daoist Xuanwei activating the detoxification ability of the myriad poison immemorial body to disintegrate the holy fire toad poison in his body. However, this poison could not be neutralized. Strange. Your poison does have some tricks up its sleeves. Half a breath might not be enough, but it can only take me 2 or 3 breaths at most. Cure it. 2 or 3 breaths passed. 20 to 30 breaths passed. However, Daoist Xuanwei was still unable to remove the holy fire toad poison from his body. Instead, he was so tired that he was sweating profusely. Because he had overused the detoxification ability of the myriad poison's mixed element body, he had wasted a lot of his physical strength. Interesting. This old man only used 30% of the primal poison qi just now. This time, this old man will use 50%. He still couldn't open it. If it's 70%, he still couldn't open it. 90%. I can't open it. 100%. I can't untie it. 120% of primordial qi that surpasses the limit. He still couldn't open it. No matter how thick-skinned Daoist Xuanwei was, he could not help but feel a little embarrassed at this moment. He was a dignified ancient half-saint who possessed the myriad poison primordial body. However, he actually could not neutralize the nameless poison of a doomsday immortal king. How could this be possible? What kind of broken poison is this? There were not many of them, and their purity was not high either. Thus, the poison that it could cause him was very limited. However, the grade of this poison seemed to be quite high. It was actually entrenched in his body like maggots. It was even harder to remove than his green wave fire poison. It had already surpassed the detoxifying limit of his myriad poison primordial body. The myriad poison primordial body could only neutralize the poison of the second step. Could this nameless little poison actually be a poison of the third step? No. This is absolutely impossible. How can a mere doomsday immortal king be qualified to possess a poison of the third step? You bumped into me once. Now it's my turn to bump into you. Devil Force Rush. Green light flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. In an instant, he imitated Daoist Xuanwei's Flame Force Rush and created an ancient devil ability. His entire body glowed with poisonous light. Then he turned into a ray of poisonous light and charged at Daoist Xuanwei. Boom! Daoist Xuanwei, who was distracted in detoxifying the poison, did not expect that Ning Fan would dare to take the initiative to knock into him. As a result, he was sent flying backward. The blood and qi in his chest churned. Although his injuries were not that serious, it was very embarrassing. Moreover, more of the fire toad's poison force was injected into his body by Ning Fan. The remaining poison in his body became even more difficult to neutralize. What kind of perception does this young man have? He actually copied my lost ancient Buddha technique in such a short period of time, and created a similar ancient devil ability. Daoist Xuanwei's expression changed drastically. It was not because Ning Fan's collision had caused him a lot of collision injuries and poison injuries. Instead, he was shocked by Ning Fan's heaven-defying perception. Of course, The grade of the Devil Force Rush that Ning Fan created on the spur of the moment was far inferior to the original version of the Flame Force Rush. It was impossible for it to be at the lost level. No matter how great Ning Fan's perception was, it was impossible for him to create a lost level ability in an instant. All he did was slightly imitate the poison-releasing technique of the Flame Force Rush. By going against the ancient Buddha intent, he simplified it into an ancient devil poison-releasing technique that belonged to him. The simplified Devil Force Rush was not a high-level poison-releasing technique. However, to Ning Fan at the moment, it was an extremely practical technique. By borrowing the force of the collision, he could penetrate the enemy's defense and directly penetrate the enemy's body. No matter how hard the enemy's tortoise shell is, it could still be poisoned. It was really practical. Moreover, because it was an ancient devil ability, Ning Fan could add the ancient devil destruction Dao that he had comprehended into it, and integrate it with the profound meaning of critical strike. The effect of poison attacks was quite outstanding. The critical strike effect made up for the flaw of this technique, which was just created, and its low grade. If the poison effect of the Flame Force Rush was 10 points, Daoist Xianwei, who was an ancient devil, would probably only be able to inflict 1 to 2 points of poison damage by forcefully using this lost ancient Buddha technique. Even though the green wave fire poison could cause additional damage to the ancient devil, Ning Fan would only suffer tens of poison damage at most after taking a hit from the Flame Force Rush. Compared to the lost level Flame Force Rush, the Devil Force Rush that Ning Fan casually created might only be able to inflict 1 to 2 points of poison damage. However, if he uses the Ancient Devil Destruction Dao to deal a critical strike, 1 to 2 points of poison damage could also be turned into 10 to 20 points of poison damage. Under the influence of various factors, Ning Fan and Daoist Xianwei could barely achieve a draw when using the violent poison technique. Boom! Daoist Xianwei, who was caught off guard, was sent flying by Ning Fan once again. His expression was extremely unpleasant. The feeling of having one's abilities stolen by the enemy was certainly not a good one. When it came to dealing with poison, the Flame Force Rush was not the only technique he had. Seeing that Ning Fan was going to hit him again, Daoist Xianwei chanted a mantra, and countless green fireballs flew out from his body, turning into millions of fire rain that rushed towards Ning Fan. Lost Ancient Buddha Technique, Buddhist Saint Light. It was obviously the ability of the million fire rain, but it was named after light. It was really strange. Ning Fan's body was extremely agile. Even though there were millions of fire rain in front of him, it was impossible for him to be hit by them. Thus, he managed to evade them one by one. He could tell that the fire rain contained the violent green wave fire poison. If he is directly hit by the fire rain, he would certainly be poisoned. The strange thing was that even though Ning Fan had clearly evaded all the fire rain attacks, his eyes still felt a stinging pain, and 2 lines of black blood flowed down from them. The green wave fire poison in his body had become more severe. What's going on? I have clearly evaded all the fire rain. Why am I still poisoned? Could it be that the fire rain is not the only medium for the poison power of this technique to spread? Green light continuously flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. Under the enlightenment of the heavenly Tao, he instantly figured out the details of this technique. So that's how it is. No wonder this technique is called Buddhist Saint Light. The medium to spread the poison of this technique is not the fire rain itself, but light rays. It was very difficult to evade all the attacks of light. The reason why Ning Fan could see the fire rain that filled the sky was because he could see the firelight. However, those firelight rays were all poisonous. Seeing them meant that he was poisoned. Ning Fan could not help but admit that Daoist Xuanwei's poison technique was too miraculous. He used the collision technique to spread the poison, and then used the light technique to spread the poison. Both of them were techniques that he had never heard of before. Buddhist Saint Light. Seeing that Ning Fan was poisoned, Daoist Xianwei smiled proudly and used the Buddhist Saint Light again. This time, even though Ning Fan managed to close his eyes in time, the poison in his body became more severe. He finally understood that not only could he avoid being poisoned by not looking at the firelight rays, he would also be poisoned as long as he is shown by the light rays. It was actually very easy for Ning Fan to avoid being shown by the light rays. When Daoist Xianwei used the Buddhist Saint Light on Ning Fan for the 3rd time, Ning Fan immediately activated the power of the Dark Yin-Yang technique and used the dark illusion technique that he had not used for a long time, causing the surrounding heaven and earth to fall into darkness. Not a single ray of light could shine under the darkness that Ning Fan controlled. Those fire-light rays that carried poisonous power were all extinguished in the world of darkness. Humph! Insignificant tricks. Compared to the experts of the dark races, your dark cultivation is a little too low. Taoist Xianwei let out a disdainful snort. He still had other poison techniques that could slowly poison Ning Fan to death. Insignificant tricks. Ancient devil technique, black devil light. At this moment, Ning Fan secretly learned the technique of using light to spread poison, and merged it into his dark illusion technique, causing the dark illusion technique that had yet to take shape to possess poison damage. At this moment, millions of devil flames suddenly burned in the boundless world of darkness. Those devil flames turned into a rain of fire and attacked Taoist Xianwei. They even emitted poisonous firelight which shone on Taoist Xuanwei's body. Now it was Taoist Xuanwei's turn to be poisoned. Damn it! This young man has secretly learned another poison-releasing technique. Taoist Xuanwei's expression became even uglier. He tore apart the world of darkness and broke Ning Fan's dark illusion technique. Then he used other ancient Buddhist poison techniques to attack Ning Fan. There was the technique of using fragrance to spread poison. There was the technique of using sound to spread poison. There was the technique of using the wind, thunder, rain and lightning of nature as the medium to spread poison. Besides, there were all kinds of strange poison techniques. Taoist Xianwei seemed to have opened a new door to poison techniques in front of Ning Fan. It made Ning Fan realize that there were actually so many strange techniques in playing with poison. It turned out that a true poison cultivator could poison the enemy with just a look and a Dao sense. The world of poison techniques that he had come into contact with in the past was too shallow. The poison cultivators of the Age of Chaos could not be compared to the ancient poison cultivators at all. Secretly learning. Secretly learning. Secretly learning. He was a rare second-level heavenly being realm cultivator in the Age of Chaos. It was impossible for him to completely learn the other party's divine art with just a glance. However, if it was just to secretly learn the myriad of strange poison-releasing techniques, then mix them together and create some low-level imitation poison techniques, he could still do it. They exchanged blows again and again with each other using poison techniques. The green wave fire poison in Ning Fan's body was getting heavier, and his qi was getting weaker. Taoist Xianwei, on the other hand, was not having an easy time either. The fire toad saint poison in his body was also getting heavier, and his qi was getting weaker and weaker. Taoist Xianwei nearly died from anger. He had exchanged hundreds of rounds of poison techniques with Ning Fan, but he still failed to poison Ning Fan to death. Instead, both of them were severely injured. Moreover, Ning Fan had plagiarized a lot of the poison techniques of the ancient Buddha sect. What a huge loss. This young man is just too detestable. He deserves to die. He deserves to die. Previously, Taoist Xianwei chose to fight Ning Fan alone because of his pride. He disdained to gang up on an ant like Ning Fan. Now his embarrassment turned into anger. How could he still care about the glory of the ancient devil realm, or the morality of the Jianghu? He just wanted to kill Ning Fan as soon as possible. Why would he care about others interfering? This young man is hard to kill. Fellow Taoist Wan Sheng, if you don't join forces with me now, when are you going to do it? After exchanging another poison technique with Ning Fan, and returning empty-handed, Taoist Xianwei roared in anger. Dragon King Wan Sheng wore a strange expression. Just now, it was Taoist Xianwei who forbade him from interfering in the battle. Now he was asking him to join the battle. What a difficult person to please. However, Taoist Xuanwei's strength was too high. Dragon King Wan Sheng did not dare to ignore Taoist Xuanwei's request. Besides, he also wanted to kill Ning Fan as soon as possible. One should know that the summoning of the ghost flower of the netherworld had a time limit. If he could not kill Ning Fan within the time limit, he would not be able to turn Ning Fan into an undying ghost soldier. Fellow Taoist, don't worry. I will help you. Dragon King Wan Sheng had the body of a half-human and half-dragon. Even though one of the two dragon horns on his head was broken, It did not hide his half-saint chi field. He floated over and joined the battle, giving off the demeanor of a powerful expert. Just as he was about to attack Ning Fan from the side, his vision suddenly darkened. He was pulled into Ning Fan's dark illusory world. Millions of flames rained down on his head and poisonous rays shone on his body. Puchi. Dragon King Wansheng tore apart the darkness and escaped from the illusory world. However, he was severely injured by Ning Fan's poison power in just a single move. His expression changed drastically. He had only been watching from the side. He did not feel how dangerous the battle between Ning Fan and Xuanwei's poison technique was at all. Only when he personally joined the battle did he realize how terrifying the power of each of their attacks was. A half-saint realm expert like him was actually injured by Ning Fan in just a single move. The battle between their poison techniques was just too terrifying. He somewhat regretted joining the battle. What are you still standing there for? Help me hold this young man back. I want to kill him with a forbidden curse rank poison technique. Daoist Xianwei shouted with extreme dissatisfaction when he saw Dragon King Wansheng being severely injured by Ning Fan in just a single move. Forbidden curse rank poison technique. No. Divine abilities of that level are all capable of killing on a large scale. If you use it here, I'm afraid many experts of my clan will get involved. Dragon King Wansheng's expression changed when he heard Xuanwei's words. Humph. I don't care about that much. I must kill this young man no matter what. Daoist Xianwei said coldly, completely disregarding the lives and deaths of the foreign race's army. Lost technique and forbidden curse technique were the classifications of divine abilities in ancient times. There were strong and weak lost techniques. All of them required the bloodline of a special race to use. Those with lower cultivation requirements such as vein opening realm cultivators could start cultivating them. However, they usually needed to possess a cultivation base that was at least 10,000 ancient times in order to truly unleash the power of the lost technique. It could be said that lost technique was a trump card specially made for the cultivators of a special race that lived in the ancient times. Some of the more powerful lost technique could even be the trump card of a third step saint. The forbidden curse rank was even higher than the lost technique. The forbidden curse rank, which had the lowest threshold, required the cultivation base of an ancient great cultivator to fully unleash its power. Not all of the ancient great cultivator level divine abilities could be classified as a forbidden curse rank. First of all, the forbidden curse rank must be matched with the bloodline of a special race. Secondly, the forbidden curse rank was more complicated than the lost technique. It usually required a lot of incantations to increase its destructive power and killing range. The execution of the forbidden curse rank was very complicated, but its power was also quite impressive. Seeing that Daoist Xianwei was stubborn and insisted on using the forbidden curse rank to attack Ning Fan, Dragon King Myriad Saint had no choice but to bite the bullet and hold Ning Fan back to buy time for Daoist Xianwei to chant the incantations. Unfortunately, Dragon King Myriad Saint was not Daoist Xianwei. He could not hold Ning Fan back at all, and could only be suppressed by Ning Fan. The flame-toad saint poison made him feel like dying. The wondrous 7 treasures tree brushed off his dragon scales one after another. The fate-severing sword left wounds on his body one after another. The sun, moon and star steel hit him time and time again until he coughed out blood. He was no match for Ning Fan at all. However, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and hold Ning Fan back. Dragon King Myriad Saint activated his eternal true body. His body shone with white light, and turned into a 100-jong large 8-headed snake in front of everyone. 8 heads. Didn't they say that this Dragon King Myriad Saint cultivates the 7 heads technique? Ning Fan frowned. He felt that the information he received did not seem to be accurate. He took out the fate-severing sword. With just a single slash, he cut off 2 of Dragon King Myriad Saint's snake heads. However, the snake heads that were cut off by Dragon King Myriad Saint only needed a flash of white light before they grew back. All 8 of his heads were staring at Ning Fan mockingly, as if they were mocking Ning Fan for his mediocre attacks. Ning Fan attacked him again and again, severely injuring Dragon King Myriad Saint. However, no matter how heavily injured the Dragon King was, he would recover instantly with a flash of white light around his body. This was the 8 heads technique that Dragon King Myriad Saint had comprehended after going into seclusion. If he was still using the previous 7 heads technique, he would have most likely been killed by Ningfan. Fortunately, the 8 heads technique was relatively resistant to attacks. Even though Ningfan could hold him back, it was difficult for him to inflict any fatal damage on him. In the end, he managed to hold Ningfan back by relying on the toughness of the 8 heads technique. Daoist Xianwei, on the other hand, took this opportunity to jump out of the battle and chant ancient incantations one after another. Feiyu Provenance Sacred Face Sparrow, Chaotic Creature. Spiritual Mountain in the west, Bamboo Sea in the south, Golden Cloud in the north and Law Realm in the east. This poison rules the world and cannot be eliminated. Broken Wings, Refined Feathers, Void Spirit Shadow, Void Bones Like Mountains, Void Spirit Salvation. After that he omitted 1,000 words. It was imaginable how much preparation time was needed to release a Forbidden Curse level ability. Most of the magic techniques and abilities required chanting incantations at the very beginning. However, if the user is skilled in using them, they would usually be able to break the incantations. Unfortunately, Forbidden Curse level abilities were an exception. It was not that such abilities could not be broken by chanting incantations. It was just that to cultivators who had yet to attain the 3rd step, it was just too difficult to break the incantations of this level. Therefore, to cultivators of the 2nd step, it was actually very impractical to use such a level of ability in a one-on-one battle. However, if there is a teammate who can delay the opponent and provide enough time for you to chant the incantations, the Forbidden Curse ability would become a peerless killing technique. As Daoist Xianwei chanted more and more incantations, a gigantic firebird that was millions of li long appeared in the sky above the battlefield. Those who were knowledgeable recognized the appearance of the fire sparrow. It was one of the 10 great Buddhist birds worshipped by the last days Buddha, the green-wave Buddhist sparrow. This firebird was completely transformed from Taoist Xuanwei's pure poison power. The flames around it were not scorching, but they were filled with destructive poisonous gas. It was summoned using the jade wave fire poison as a medium. If this firebird really fell, millions of miles of water would be flattened and poisoned. Cultivators below the immortal Emperor realm would basically be poisoned to death. Even Myriad Saint's Pass, which was protected by an array formation, could be razed to the ground with a single move. Even a defensive expert like Ningfan could be severely injured, or even killed by such an attack. Initially, Ningfan wanted to get rid of Myriad Saint Dragon King in 2 to 3 moves, and then stop Daoist Xianwei from chanting the incantation. Unfortunately, Dragon King Wansheng was too hard to deal with. He was hard to kill and hard to get rid of. Seeing that the gigantic firebird was becoming more and more solid, the incantation of the forbidden incantation was coming to an end. Ningfan knew that he could not delay any longer. He must not let Daoist Xianwei finish chanting all the incantations. He must get rid of all the enemies in front of him before this incantation is released. There's no time left. With my current strength, I can't defeat Daoist Xianwei at all. At most, I can only fight him to a draw. That's already my limit. Besides, it's impossible for me to get rid of Myriad Saint Dragon King in a short period of time. If this forbidden incantation really lands on me, even if I can survive by luck, none of the Eastern Heaven cultivators behind me in the Myriad Saints Pass will survive. Also, those thorny gigantic flowers keep making me feel uneasy. Sure enough, I can only rely on external forces. Ningfan sighed. Using the connection between their minds, he gave an order to the Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul, which had been waiting for him for a long time. In the eyes of outsiders, it was already enough for him to be proud of himself for being able to fight Daoist Xianwei to a draw with his Immortal King Realm cultivation base. However, he was not satisfied with this achievement. If he wanted to guard the border river and the eastern sky, his strength alone was too insignificant. Just Daoist Xianwei alone was enough to make him exhausted. If an even stronger enemy appeared, what should he do? I can't be complacent just because of my recent achievements. I must calm myself down and continue to accumulate strength. Master, what are your orders? The Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul's respectful voice resounded in his mind. Kill that fiery bird for me. Can you do it? If this bird is completely formed, little nascent soul won't be able to do it. But now this bird is only 60% formed. It won't be difficult to destroy it. The Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul's words were filled with strong confidence. She was the Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul, who could kill 10 immortal emperors with a single strike. She was the Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul, which would give even quasi-saints a headache. A mere fiery bird which had yet to form the forbidden spell was nothing to her. Be it myriad Saint Dragon King or Taoist Xianwei, all of these existences were nothing in her eyes. She had made up her mind. She wanted to help Ning Fan and destroy all of his enemies. Only by doing so would Big Sister Black Devil stop beating her up. Rumble. All of a sudden, thunder rumbled across heaven and earth. In the depths of the rumbling thunder, the lightning diagram opened up. A gigantic lightning nascent soul which sat at the center of the lightning diagram appeared in front of everyone while riding on the ancestral lightning sparrow. The lightning nascent soul raised its chubby little hand and pointed at the gigantic fiery sparrow in the sky. Immediately, a blood-red lightning pillar which carried a destructive chi struck the fiery bird which had yet to fully form, turning it into ashes. Then he waved his chubby little hand and shot out 2 lightning pillars. One of them struck Dragon King Wansheng, causing him to be charred on the inside and tender on the outside, causing 7 of his 8 snake heads to be turned into mush on the spot. The other struck Taoist Xianwei, causing the poisonous flames on his body to flicker and extinguish, causing 5 of his 10 giant tails to break. Everyone was stunned by the domineering appearance of the Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul. Even Taoist Xianwei, who was arrogant and insufferably arrogant, just now turned pale and had the urge to curse. Fuck his ancestors. Why would a Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul appear in this place? Which immortal emperor is facing his tribulation? How could he be so unlucky and attract this thing? Could it be that this is a trick played by the Eastern Heaven Immortal Emperor in the Myriad Saint Pass? But why is this Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul attacking us instead of attacking the Immortal Emperor, who is facing his tribulation? Taoist Xianwei was so angry that he burst out cursing. He was an ancient devil and his words were crude. Everything he said before was just a facade. Now that he was shocked, he finally revealed his true nature. When Taoist Xianwei saw the Tao Annihilation Thunder Infant for the first time, he did not expect that it would be someone's captive. After all, he had just arrived at this place. He did not know that Ning Fan had captured a Tao-destroying lightning infant in the third path. But Myriad Saint Dragon King knew. It wasn't just Dragon King Wansheng. Many of the foreign races had heard of this rumor as well. But most people didn't believe it. No one believed that Ning Fan could capture the legendary Tao exterminating lightning infant. Moreover, no one could imagine that Ning Fan could actually subdue the arrogant lightning infant after capturing it, and make it help him in battle. This was too absurd. Even a third-step sage wouldn't be able to subdue the arrogant Tao Extermination Thunder Nascent Soul. Moreover, why was the Tao Annihilation Lightning Nascent riding an ancestral lightning sparrow? This combination was simply too strange. Unheard of. The forbidden curse has been broken. Follow me to kill the enemies. Ning Fan ordered the Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent in a deep voice. Yes, Master. The Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul chuckled coldly. It looked at Xianwei and the other experts as if they were looking at its food. As the Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul shot out a few more destructive lightning pillars, the expressions of Xianwei, Myriad Saint and the other experts changed drastically. They did not even care about the ghost flower of the netherworld that they had painstakingly summoned. After exchanging glances with each other, all of them ran for their lives. Ning Fan alone was already very difficult to deal with. If the Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul joins the fray, Xianwei was very afraid that he would die here today. Even though the ghost flower of the netherworld was famous, Madame Ghost Flower who summoned it was too weak. She would not be of much use. Since the situation was unfavorable, they could only retreat for the time being. Who asked the Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul to be so infamous? A full-powered attack from it could even kill 10 immortal emperors in a single move. That kind of existence was like a natural disaster. It was not a good opponent. Master. That Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul is actually calling Ning Fan master. This is too absurd. This is too absurd. Taoist Xian Wei could not hide the shock on his face. He continuously dodged the attacks from the lightning pillars and ran far away in the blink of an eye. He did not run together with Myriad Saint Dragon King. Instead, they ran separately. He felt that even though Myriad Saint Dragon King was not a match for the Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul, it would not be difficult for him to run away alone. He would certainly be able to run away, but he would inevitably suffer some serious injuries from the pursuit of the Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul. He did not want to suffer serious injuries. The reason why he left Myriad Saint Dragon King behind was because he wanted to use him as a bait to attract the enemy's firepower and help him block the calamity. Because he had fled faster than Dragon King Wansheng was slower. As expected, the Tao Extermination Lightning Infant was still chasing after Dragon King Wansheng relentlessly. Most of the lightning pillars were aimed at Dragon King Wansheng, and not Wu Yu, who was further away. Sigh. Fellow Taoist Myriad Saint, do me a favor and help me take some of the attacks. After all, your 8 heads technique can take a beating and you're not afraid of getting hurt. Taoist Xian Wei thought to himself with a gloomy expression. Suddenly, Ning Fan's figure appeared behind Taoist Xian Wei. Without saying a word, Ning Fan struck him with his rod. That single strike almost used up all of Ning Fan's remaining strength. Ning Fan had been reserving his strength all along. He did not use the Sea Calming Divine Needle because he was waiting for this strike. Not good. I can't dodge it. The timing of Ning Fan's sneak attack was too ingenious. It was so ingenious that Taoist Xian Wei only had his guard up against the Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul. He did not have the time to dodge the attack at all. At the critical moment, he tilted his body slightly and managed to avoid getting his vital parts hit. The Sea Calming Divine Needle struck the left shoulder of Taoist Xian Wei's true body. With just a single strike, Ning Fan shattered the shoulder bone of his true body into pieces. Moreover, the shattered bone could not be healed or restored within a short period of time. Puff. Taoist Xian Wei spurted out a mouthful of blood. He was struck down from the sky by Ning Fan's rod. However, he did not dare to continue fighting Ning Fan. He just glared at Ning Fan with resentment. Then he held his limp left arm and dived into the bottom of the Realm River, escaping without a trace. Little brat, I'll remember you. Just you wait. Those were the words that Taoist Xian Wei left behind before he left. Ning Fan wanted to chase after him to the bottom of the river. However, Taoist Xian Wei actually opened his devil cavity halfway and vanished in an instant. Ning Fan did not know if he had escaped out of the Eastern Heaven, or if he was still in the Eastern Heaven, or in the Realm River. Ning Fan sighed inwardly. It was such a pity that he could not kill an existence like Xian Wei. However, when he thought about it, it made sense. How could it be that easy to kill an existence like him? If he could kill this person so easily, a being like Xiang Bozi would have lived his life in vain. However, even if Xian Wei could run away, he could not escape Myriad Sage. Ning Fan did not care about the other members of the foreign races. His eyes were only fixed on Myriad Sage Dragon King. At this moment, the Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul was riding on the ancestral Lightning Sparrow, chasing after the unlucky Myriad Sage Dragon King, and beating him up. Myriad Sage Dragon King only had the strength to run away. He did not have the strength to fight back at all. Of course, Ning Fan could not let Myriad Sage Dragon King escape as well. If he does not kill one of them, wouldn't he gain nothing from this battle? Seal. This time Ning Fan had learned his lesson. In order to prevent Myriad Sage Dragon King from escaping as well, Ning Fan activated the Force character and sealed heaven and earth. He first cut off Myriad Sage Dragon King's path of retreat before catching him like a turtle in a jar. Seeing that Taoist Xian Wei had actually abandoned him and fled on his own, Myriad Sage Dragon King was so angry that he cursed loudly. He could not even defeat Ning Fan alone. Now that the Tao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul had joined the fray, would he really die here? No, he still had the ghost flowers of the Netherworld. Even though the cultivation base of Madame Gui Hua who summoned the flowers was too low, she could still use those flowers to protect her life. Fellow Taoist Gui Hua, quickly save me. For the first time in his life, the arrogant myriad sage dragon king spoke to an Eastern Heaven cultivator in such a polite manner. Moreover, that Eastern Heaven cultivator was a traitor that he had always looked down upon. Madame Guihua's pretty face turned pale. She could not let myriad sage dragon king die here. Otherwise, because of the restriction, she, a traitor of the Eastern Heaven, would die together with him. Chapter 1146. Since the rebellious emperors of the Eastern Heaven had all been planted with restrictive spells, Madame Guihua did not dare to escape alone. She had no choice but to stay here and assist myriad Saint Dragon King. She bit the tip of her tongue and spat out a drop of black blood, sprinkling it on the thorny flowers that were growing on the surface of the water. After using this drop of black blood, Madame Guihua's originally beautiful face instantly turned old and ugly. As for those thorny flowers, their ghost chi skyrocketed, making them incomparably terrifying. Ning Fan, who was working together with the Dao Destruction Lightning Infant to kill myriad Saint Dragon King, and the other experts of the foreign races frowned. He sensed the changes in the thorny flowers on the surface of the water. However, he did not put those giant flowers as his priority. Since Daoist Xianwei had escaped, what Ning Fan wanted to do the most right now was to kill myriad Saint Dragon King. Seeing that Madame Guihua had used her black blood, myriad Saint Dragon King heaved a sigh of relief. After using all his strength to block the joint attack from Ning Fan and the Dao Destruction Lightning Infant, he gave Ning Fan a strange smile. Little Yen Luo, you are indeed very strong. I am not your opponent, let alone your Dao Destruction Lightning Infant. However, if I want to escape from here, you won't be able to stop me. Haha. Now, it's time for the Night of 100 Ghosts. Ghost soldiers appear. As soon as myriad Saint Dragon King's voice fell, the chilly wind between the sky and the water instantly became 10 times colder. At this moment, the thorny flowers on the surface of the water opened their bloody mouths out of nowhere, making them look like a man-eating flower. There were also ghosts that were spat out from the mouths of hundreds and thousands of thorny flowers. Their bodies were stained with disgusting mucus. This is... Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. Those ghosts that were spat out by the thorny flowers seemed a little familiar. There seemed to be the immortal kings and immortal venerables that he had killed before, the low-grade foreign races that he had massacred, and the immortal emperors of the foreign races that he had killed. More and more ghosts flew out from the mouths of the thorny flowers and stared at Ning Fan blankly. However, as myriad Saint Dragon King gave an order, all of the ghosts showed killing intent towards Ning Fan and charged towards him in a frenzy. These experts of the foreign races should have been killed by me. Why are their souls still intact? The death of a human is like the extinguishing of a lamp. The death of an immortal is like the scattering of thoughts. It's fine for those foreign races with first-step cultivation, as it's not difficult for their souls to not be extinguished after death. However, if a second-step expert were to perish, it would be as difficult as ascending the heavens for their soul to be reborn. The Fuli spirit will have such a heaven-defying ability, and these thorny giant flowers actually have it as well. Bang! Bang! Ning Fan summoned the fate-severing sword, the steel of sun, moon and stars, and the wondrous tree of 7 treasures at the same time. The ghosts that tried to approach him were shattered into pieces. However, after being smashed into pieces, those ghosts could actually be reborn again and again. It was impossible to kill them all. Putting aside low-grade ghosts, even if they could resurrect infinitely, they would just be sending themselves to their deaths. Ning Fan could kill hundreds or thousands of them with just a raise of his hand. But the higher-level ghosts were a little tricky. An immortal sovereign or immortal king with only one life was not much of a threat, but an immortal sovereign or immortal king with unlimited lives was even harder to deal with than some weaker immortal emperors. What troubled Ning Fan the most were those ghost immortal emperors who could resurrect infinitely. When these immortal emperors were still alive, none of them could withstand more than a few attacks from Ning Fan. However, after they turned into ghosts, not even mid-grade innate magic treasures could truly destroy their ghosts. It was really strange. When a group of immortal emperors no longer faced the threat of death, they would be able to attack their enemies without caring about their own injuries. The explosive destructive power would be extremely terrifying. Fortunately, Ning Fan's eternal true body had an extremely strong defense, and the cross-shaped light ring was also extremely heaven-defying. After these ghostly immortal emperors died, they didn't have the East pacifying talisman to counter the heaven-sealing art, so their intelligence became very low. Just as they were about to get within 1,000 zhang of Ning Fan, they were all frozen to death by the cross-shaped halos. Then they were killed by Ning Fan again and again. They were reborn, destroyed, and reborn again. It was incomparably disgusting to kill them all. Even though Ning Fan was not afraid of these ghost immortal emperors, he was still held back by them after all. Thus, he did not have the strength to worry about Myriad Saint Dragon King. The Tao Annihilation Lightning Infant was also held up by a few undying and indestructible ghost soul immortal emperors, and could no longer chase after Myriad Saint Dragon King. Her lightning pillar, which had always been successful, was actually unable to kill these ghosts. This made her feel very frustrated. Even she felt troubled by these ghosts that could resurrect infinitely. At the same time, he felt that the man looked familiar. He seemed to have heard of him somewhere before. It must be a very old memory. Otherwise, she would have remembered it. Ha. Little Yanluo, you're just so. Are these half-completed undying ghost soldiers enough to give you a headache? You just stay here and fight these undying ghost soldiers. I'm going to leave now. Myriad Saint Dragon King smiled proudly. While Ning Fan was distracted, he began to tear apart the great force of heaven and earth, trying to escape from Ning Fan's blockade. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. How could he let Myriad Saint Dragon King escape? All of a sudden, he stopped the attacks of most of his magic treasures, and only held the fate-severing sword in his hand. Then he used a strange sword technique to cut thousands of low-grade ghosts that were approaching the range of the light ring into two. Myriad Saint Dragon King was filled with disdain. He did not even bother to turn his head around. He was certain that Ning Fan's attack was useless. The ghosts that were killed should be able to resurrect infinitely. How could an undying ghost soldier be eliminated with just a single attack? Their ability to resurrect infinitely was not just a joke. Even if these ghosts were just half-completed undying ghost soldiers, and they were not complete, they were still not something that could be eliminated with such a simple method. Moreover, if it wasn't because these undying ghost soldiers were just half-completed undying ghost soldiers which had the fatal flaw of time limit, Myriad Saint Dragon King would definitely choose to stay here and besiege Ning Fan with his ghost army. Only the true undying ghost soldiers could be used forever. The half-completed undying ghost soldiers could only be summoned on the spot, and could only be used for around an hour. What a pity! What a pity! It seems like the plan to attack the Myriad Saints past this time has failed. I won't have the chance to turn this heaven-defying immortal king into a true undying ghost soldier. With this brat's strength, the Grand Divine Priest will also be interested if he is turned into an undying ghost soldier. What a pity! Myriad Saint Dragon King sighed. All of a sudden, he seemed to hear the shrill screams of the ghosts behind him as if he was hallucinating. It's impossible. I must be hearing things. How could those half-completed undying ghost soldiers be screaming? Since they could resurrect after death, those ghosts should not have made a sound when they were killed. Myriad Saint Dragon King shook his head and silently chanted a calming incantation, trying to suppress the hallucinations in his ears. However, not only did the hallucinations not disappear, they became even more intense. More and more ghosts were screaming in pain. It's not a hallucination. Those half-completed undying ghost soldiers were really screaming in pain. Myriad Saint Dragon King, who had just torn apart half of the seal of heaven and earth, was shocked. He turned his head and saw an unbelievable scene. When Ning Fan used a strange sword technique, the half-completed undying ghost soldiers who were said to be immortal for a limited time were destroyed forever. They could no longer be resurrected. What's going on? What kind of sword technique is that? It can actually destroy undying living beings. Myriad Saint Dragon King felt that his outlook on life had received a huge impact. Suddenly, he thought of something, and the 8 giant snake heads sucked in a cold breath. He remembered that the information about Ning Fan mentioned something about him being the successor of the ancient chaos. The successor of the ancient chaos. Could it be the successor of the ancient chaos that I thought he was? The ferocious star who killed undying living beings like cutting vegetables in the ancient times. The monstrous great emperor, who was chosen by several immortal sovereigns of the true world, when he was only at the second step of the immortal world. The ancient chaos great emperor. Legend has it that the ancient chaos great emperor could easily kill undying living beings. I didn't believe it at first. I didn't expect it to be true. This young man is actually not afraid of undying living beings. He actually has a sword technique that can harm undying living beings. Slash. 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 Under the powerful attacks of Ningfan's 5 yin-yang swords and life-severing sword, large numbers of half-completed undying ghost soldiers were destroyed forever. The Tao Destruction Lightning Infant was stunned. The undying living beings that even she found difficult to deal with were actually destroyed by Ningfan with ease. For the first time, she felt a trace of admiration towards her master, Ningfan, from the bottom of her heart. He's too cool. Is this my master? He is like a heavenly god of golden flames who wields a divine sword to kill undying living beings who go against the heavens samsara. He's too cool. The thunder infant of Tao annihilation shamefully blushed. A huge golden infant's pretty face was as red as it could get. Impossible. How could the undying ghost soldiers of the ghost flower of the netherworld be destroyed so easily? Wasn't the achievement of the ancient chaos great emperor in killing undying living beings fabricated by the later generations? Could it be true? Madame Guihua and great emperor Maha were drenched in cold sweat. Even the undying living beings could not stop Ningfan. Once Ningfan kills all of them, his next target would be myriad Saint Dragon King and them, the traitors. Fellow Taoist Guihua, we shouldn't stay here for long. I have a one-time devil cavity that was given to me by the Devil Conferral Summit. I will bring you out of this place. Great Emperor Maha suddenly became forthright and wanted to escape with Madame Guihua. The devil cavity was a unique technique of the ancient devils. He had a one-time devil cavity. Even if Ningfan sealed the heaven and earth, he would still be able to escape from this place. Of course, that method of escape could only be used once. Moreover, the primordial spirit of an immortal emperor must be offered to the devil cavity as a sacrificial offering. Otherwise, the devil cavity would collapse halfway. Great Emperor Maha sneered. That was why he wanted to escape with Guihua. Wasn't Guihua a ready-made sacrificial offering for an immortal emperor? What? Fellow Taoist actually has a one-time devil cavity that defies the heavens? However, we are under the restriction of the great divine priest of the foreign races. If we abandon the troops of the foreign races and escape on our own, we will be killed by the restriction. Madame Guihua was pleasantly surprised at first, but then she said worriedly, "Don't be afraid. I have a secret medicine that can suppress the enslavement restriction of the Z-Way immortal cultivator. Take it." Great Emperor Maha handed Madame Guihua an unknown pill without hesitation. It was true that he had a secret medicine. However, the medicine that he gave to Madame Guihua was fake. It was just a sacrificial offering. How could it be worthy of using the precious immemorial devil medicine? He just needed to deceive her. Thank you, fellow Taoist, for saving me from the abyss of suffering. From now on, I am yours. I am willing to serve you every day. At the moment of life and death, Madame Guihua did not suspect anything. After taking the pill, she winked at Great Emperor Maha. However, she had forgotten that she had used the power of the Netherworld Blood Pact. Her appearance had become extremely ugly. Her winking nearly made Great Emperor Maha vomit on the spot. Let's escape now. Devil cavity open. Great Emperor Maha activated the one-time devil cavity and tore open a pitch-black passage between heaven and earth. He brought Madame Guihua and was about to enter it in a flash. However, at this moment, a sharp sword light that could pierce through 1,000 li came slashing at them, shattering the one-time devil cavity. Great Emperor Maha and Madame Guihua let out a muffled groan. They were blasted out by the hurricane caused by the collapse of the devil cavity. Their expressions instantly turned extremely ugly. Ningfan had already killed most of the high-level ghosts and got rid of the entanglement of the ghosts. Now he was right in front of the two of them. Ningfan, if you dare to stop me from escaping, I will fight you to the death. Great Emperor Maha was infuriated. What nonsense are you talking about? You are the traitors of the eastern sky. How can I let you escape? Die. Qi Ning Fan's golden flame true body held the fate-severing sword. What kind of ability did Great Emperor Maha have? It was said that he had once fought with Luo Ho before he became an emperor. However, he was actually forced to retreat by 3 punches. With his current cultivation base, it would be difficult for him to withstand a single sword strike from the fate-severing sword. Great Emperor Maha let out a miserable shriek. He was killed by Ning Fan's sword. It was a strange death. Great Emperor Maha did not have anything like a primordial spirit in his body. His physical body was everything he had. As expected, this Great Emperor Maha is a corpse devil. Ning Fan recalled the information he obtained after he killed the Primal Core Realm Great Emperor, and smiled coldly. Be it the Primal Core Realm Great Emperor, or Great Emperor Maha, none of them were native cultivators of the Eastern Sky. Therefore, they did not feel guilty at all when they betrayed the Eastern Sky. One of them was a pill devil while the other was a corpse devil. Both of them were devil creatures that had escaped to the Eastern Sky from the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. The living beings of the Supreme Pill Sacred Region could not leave the Sacred Region. However, strange living beings like pill devils and corpse devils could. It was precisely because there were many pill devils and corpse devils who had escaped from the extreme pill sacred region and stayed in the Eastern Sky forever. That was why the extreme pill sacred region tightened its control and no longer allowed any non-human living beings to escape from the sacred region. I'm getting sidetracked. Ning Fan was not concerned about Great Emperor Maha's background at all. Compared to Great Emperor Maha, he was more concerned about Lady Ghost Flower. The ugly woman in front of him was quite capable. She could summon a thorny gigantic flower and undead creatures. Interesting. If it was in the past, Ning Fan would not mind sparing Lady Ghost Flower's life and keeping her by his side as a cauldron or a servant. Unfortunately, she was a traitor. If she was a traitor, how could he forgive her? Because of her betrayal, not only did countless cultivators of the Eastern Sky die because of her, but those people were also Ning Fan's comrades. They were the people who protected the Eastern Sky selflessly. Even though their corpses were not cold yet, this woman must pay the price. Don't kill me. I can be your pillow. Lady Ghost Flower, whose face was so ugly that it was distorted, immediately begged when she saw Ning Fan's cold eyes looking at her. Even though she was begging on the surface, she had already made a ruthless decision. Without any warning, the space behind Ning Fan was suddenly torn apart. An innate flower which was filled with ghostly chi flew out from it and struck at Ning Fan's head. It was a sneak attack. Moreover, it was the kind of sneak attack that was extremely difficult to dodge. The timing was just too good. Unfortunately, Ning Fan did not need to dodge the attack of a mere low-grade innate magic treasure. He did not even try to dodge it. Instead, he allowed the hoe to hit the top of his head. Even the golden flames on the surface of his body did not break. She's indeed a cruel and merciless woman. Even when she's about to die, she still dares to make a false accusation. Not bad. Ning Fan sneered. A ray of fate-severing sword light slashed out, shredding Lady Ghost Flower's physical body into pieces and capturing her primordial spirit along the way. He did not immediately throw her into the divine refining cauldron to kill her. He was still very interested in the method that Lady Ghost Flower used to summon the giant thorny flower and the undying being. Just as he was about to search her soul, her primordial spirit withered rapidly after leaving her physical body. This scene was like a fresh flower that was pulled out from the soil. It died extremely quickly. Seeing such a strange scene, Ning Fan's expression changed slightly. He seized the time to search Lady Ghost Flower's soul. In just 10 breaths of time, Lady Ghost Flower's primordial spirit completely withered and died. The information that Ning Fan obtained from searching her soul within such a short period of time was very limited. After Lady Ghost Flower's primordial spirit withered, a seed which was shrouded in ghostly chi fell out from her primordial spirit. Almost at the same time when Lady Ghost Flower died, the ghost flowers of the netherworld that she summoned all turned into shadows and disappeared. As soon as the ghost flowers of the netherworld disappeared, the half-completed undying beings also lost their source of power and disappeared. This was the reason why Ning Fan did not go after Myriad Saint Dragon King, but went to kill the traitorous Emperor of the Eastern Heaven first. Those undying beings were too annoying. They were even harder to deal with than Myriad Saint Dragon King. Without those undying beings, Myriad Saint Dragon King was the only high-level combat power of the enemy. Ning Fan and the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant were now free to focus on dealing with Myriad Saint Dragon King. Myriad Saint Dragon King was in despair. He was still a little bit away from completely breaking the seal of Ning Fan's great force. This seal was set up by Ning Fan with 13,500 tribulations worth of magic power. It was too difficult to break. It was just like a first-level quasi-sacred realm expert, who was blocking his path of retreat. If the seal cannot be broken, he would not be able to escape. If he cannot escape, he would have to bear the wrath of Ning Fan and the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant. Ning Fan was not Daoist Xianwei. At this moment, there was no need for him to fight Myriad Saint Dragon King alone. Why should he talk about morality with Myriad Saint Dragon King? Of course, he would choose to bully Myriad Saint Dragon King with numbers. In that case, how would Myriad Saint Dragon King have any chance of winning? Even if he used all his trump cards, he was still killed by Ning Fan and the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant in the end. Of course, Ning Fan could also do it alone. However, it would take too much time. Myriad Saint Dragon King's 8 heads were indeed worthy of praise. It was too difficult to kill him. According to Ning Fan's estimation, without the help of the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant, he would need at least a few days to exhaust all the power of the 8 heads of Myriad Saint Dragon King and kill him. With the help of the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant, he only used 2 hours to kill Myriad Saint Dragon King. Of course, all the low-grade foreign races that came to attack the Myriad Saint Pass this time were killed, because Ning Fan had sealed the area in advance. Even though Daoist Xianwei had escaped, the entire Myriad Saint Pass was still filled with cheers. Countless cultivators of the Eastern Heaven who were fanatical about Ning Fan had almost regarded the powerful Ning Fan as a god in their hearts. After what happened today, Ning Fan had defeated the army of 2 half-step sovereigns and more than 10 immortal emperors all by himself. There was absolutely no one below the quasi-sage realm in the Eastern Heaven who could surpass Ning Fan's achievement. Even the senior figures of the Eastern Heaven, such as the Void Space Emperor and the Divine Space Emperor, began to treat Ning Fan as a senior from the bottom of their hearts. Everyone was cheering. Only LV Feng and Yun Lei were not cheering. Instead, they were blaming themselves. When Ning Fan faced the army of foreign races alone, it was not that they did not have the courage to fight alongside him. It was just that they knew very well that even if the 2 of them ran out of the formation of the Myriad Saint Pass, they would not be able to provide any help to Ning Fan. They were just too weak. The gap between them and Ning Fan was no longer just 1 or 2 cultivation realms. Instead, it was the difference between the 2 dimensions. The weak did not have the qualifications to be friends with the strong. Even if the weak want to fight alongside the strong, they would only become the strong's burden. That night, the shocking achievement of the Myriad Saint Pass had once again shaken the entire Border River Alliance. At night, the Void Space Emperor and the others who had recovered their physical strength led the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven to launch a surprise attack on the Vermilion Bird Pass, which was the last impregnable pass of the 9th path. LV Feng and Yun Lei did not participate in the battle. The troops of the foreign races that were left on the surface of the 9th path had already been slaughtered by Ning Fan alone. There were not many foreign races guarding the Vermilion Bird Pass, and none of them were immortal emperors. With the help of the Void Space Emperor and the others, it would be enough to easily crush the Vermilion Bird Pass. They were disdainful to covet such a free contribution. They hoped to be like Ning Fan and fight against the foreign races with their swords and spears. However, they did not have the strength to do so. The few cultivators who stayed behind in the Myriad Saint Pass held a grand banquet to thank the hero of the 9th path, Ning Fan. Logically speaking, as Ning Fan's friends, it was impossible for LV Feng and Yun Lei to be absent from such a banquet. However, they were still absent because of shame. While he was drunk, Ning Fan's eyes were as calm as still water. His gaze fell on the 2 empty seats at the side. He seemed to have understood something and smiled bitterly. Given his intelligence, How could he not know that his two fair-weather friends were a little stubborn this time? Under Ning Fan's suggestion, the banquet did not last for too long. Everyone knew that Ning Fan had just gone through a great battle during the day. Now he needed to rest. Naturally, he would not celebrate through the night. After Ning Fan left the banquet, he did not really go to rest as everyone had guessed. Instead, he carried a few wine jars and went straight to LV Feng and Yin Lei. It did not matter whether Ning Fan's friends were strong or weak. What was important was that they were sincere. That was enough. If LV Feng and Yin Lei had enough strength to help Ning Fan, even if it was just 0.1%, they would still choose to join the battle. If they could save Ning Fan's life by sacrificing themselves, they would certainly be willing to die for him. However, the cruel reality was that even if they sacrificed their lives and gave their all, they could not even touch the corner of Ning Fan's clothes. As for Ning Fan, he did not need their help at all. Cheers! It was already late at night. LV Feng and Yin Lei avoided the lively banquet. They stayed alone and drank wine to drown their sorrows. The scenes where they interacted with Ning Fan in the past seemed to have drifted far away. They could not see them clearly anymore. In the past, I only knew that marriage requires a match between two families. However, I never thought that making friends might be like this. I don't even have the value to share life and death with my friends. I'm ashamed to call myself a friend. The monarchs of the mortal world are at the peak. Therefore, they can only be alone. If a cultivator ascends to the peak, he can only be alone. It's not that he doesn't want to make friends. It's just that there is no one else who is worthy to share wine with him and entrust life and death to him. While the two of them were sighing, they suddenly saw a young man in white robes walking towards them with a smile on his face. Their expressions instantly became a little awkward. Then, the shame on their faces became even stronger. Ning Fan sat down as if he did not see the shame on their faces. As soon as he opened his mouth, he said arrogantly, "I'm very strong." Damn it. This brat is so arrogant today. I know you're strong, but don't you feel embarrassed when you keep boasting about yourself? LV Feng and Yin Lei, who were feeling ashamed and blamed themselves, suddenly felt powerless to complain. You're also very weak. Ning Fan said another sentence without any rhyme or reason. LV Feng and Yin Lei, who thought that Ning Fan was boasting, suddenly felt the loneliness and silence in Ning Fan's words. They did not know why, but their hearts suddenly calmed down. It was as if they were infected by Ning Fan's loneliness. Because I was weak, I failed to protect my sworn brother well. In the end, he lost his chance to walk on the path of immortality, and became silent in the cycle of reincarnation in the Rain World. Rain World? This brat is actually someone who ascended from the mortal world? Why haven't I heard about it before? Wait. This brat has made so many enemies in the four heavens. If this matter is leaked, how many people would come to the mortal world to take revenge on his family? How could he simply tell others about this? Why did he tell them? Brother Ning, stop. Stop. What you said is a big secret. You can't just tell others. It's not that we're worried that we won't keep it a secret. It's just that once we die in the hands of our enemies and our souls are searched, it's inevitable that. LV Feng and Yin Lei became anxious. Just as they were about to stop Ning Fan from continuing, Ning Fan shook his head and said, "Don't interrupt me. Listen to me. Because I was weak, I lost my sworn brother. Also, because I was weak, I couldn't help my father recover his memories. I couldn't stay by my mother's side and help her get rid of the pain of petrification. In my previous life, because I was weak, I couldn't change the fate of the ancient heavenly court. In this life, I don't have the power to change the fate of my master, ancient chaos. I couldn't stop the fall of the seventh slaying emperor. Even a woman who was very important to me has turned into a soul grass because of my weakness. It's not time for us to meet again. I've never had a fixed goal for cultivation. I don't have any vision or expectations about the end of cultivation. I don't seek immortality or eternity. I want to protect something, but I keep losing it. I'm very hesitant. In the water of the Realm River, I saw the current me who is a monster that I can't defeat no matter what. I'm very hesitant. I don't know if I can really protect the Realm River and the Eastern Heaven with my current self. However, I can't retreat. I can't do it no matter what. It's very tiring. However, I've been walking on this path since I was very young. When I was young, I carried the responsibility of being my elder brother. Later on, I carried the responsibility of being the city lord of 7 Apricot City, and the successor of the Black Devil clan. Then, I carried the responsibility of U Country and the responsibility of the Rain World. In the end, I carried the responsibility of protecting the Eastern Heaven. In the future, this responsibility might continue to grow along with my strength. I'm very tired. LV Feng and Yunlei suddenly felt that the shame they felt just now was a little ridiculous. What bullshit shame? You're just feeling inferior because you were shocked by Ning Fan's strength, aren't you? They had never seen Ning Fan like this before. The feeling that Ning Fan gave people was that he was always sharp and his body was full of thorns. Whoever tries to hurt him would be stabbed instead. However, it turned out that the thorns on his body were just a shell. Underneath the shell was endless loneliness and exhaustion. Responsibility? Do cultivators need to carry this kind of burden? Would a person like Ning Fan really care about the rise and fall of the world? What he cared about was never the lives of the common people. It was just a few figures behind him. So you don't have to worry. I won't let others kill you and search your memories. I won't lose things again and again. Even if the heavens will stop me from keeping the things I want, I will still keep them. Ning Fan's eyes suddenly became arrogant and domineering. He picked up the wine jar and drained it in one gulp. Then he said to LV Feng and Yunlei, I want to rest for a while tonight. Do you want to drink with me? Of course. LV Feng and Yunlei thought it through. Their cultivation bases might not be able to help Ning Fan, but at least they could slightly melt the loneliness in Ning Fan's heart with wine. Chapter 1147. Where did the world come from? Why did wars happen? Why could a rod and a hole create life? Were women more beautiful with big breasts or long legs? That night, Ning Fan accompanied the two drunkards to discuss strange topics for the entire night with a bitter smile. Finally, he managed to send them away. After instructing a few low-grade cultivators to throw LV Feng and Yunlei back to their rooms, Ning Fan returned to his own room and entered the profound Yin world for seclusion. He ascended the mountain as an immortal and descended the mountain as a human. Drinking and talking with true friends indeed made Ning Fan feel a lot more relaxed. Even the enormous pressure that Shueshen Wu brought him during this period of time had been reduced by a lot. So what if the enemy is strong? Why do they have to give me so much pressure? Whether the pressure is great or not, the things that I have to do will not change because of it. He was here to guard the border river. That was all. If the enemy is so strong that he could not defeat them with force, then he would turn the situation around with schemes and tricks. Ning Fan exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi. When he released all the pressure that Shueshen Wu brought him, his state of mind received a great improvement. From today onwards, as long as the enemy has yet to attain the Sage Realm, it would be very difficult for them to bring him any psychological pressure. Ning Fan could still face such powerful enemies calmly. This improvement of his state of mind was also a gain. After the battle with Daoist Xianwei, Ning Fan had accumulated a lot of green wave fire poison in his body. He was just temporarily suppressing the poison power. If he does not remove it completely, he could forget about meditating and cultivating. Just the slightest circulation of his qi would trigger a backlash from the poison power. Logically speaking, it would be very difficult for Ning Fan to remove the poison power from Daoist Xuanwei's body, given his current cultivation base. He was almost considering if he should buy another high-grade antidote pill from the heaven-reaching sect on credit. Fortunately, he did not need to buy any antidote pills this time. Coincidentally, there were some extremely high-grade antidote pills among his spoils of war. After killing Great Emperor Emohi, Ning Fan seized his storage pouch. There were 4 sealed jade boxes inside which contained 4 strange pills. They were pills that Ning Fan had never seen before. They were definitely not something that could be concocted using any of the pill refinement techniques that he was familiar with. When Ning Fan used the all-living things communication technique, he immediately knew the type of the pills. It turned out that these 4 pills were the famous immemorial devil medicines. Only a pure-blooded ancient demon alchemist could refine such a pill. When consumed by an ancient demon, the effect of the pill's potency would multiply. Anyone who wasn't an ancient devil could only obtain the basic medicinal effects of the pill. If an enemy of an ancient devil, a Buddhist cultivator, consumed the pill, it would be asking for trouble. There would be no benefit, and it would be equivalent to consuming poison. Immemorial potions didn't have complicated names because ancient demons didn't like fancy things. They liked to be straightforward. Usually, the function and grade of the potion would be the name of the immemorial potion. Among the 4 primordial potions, there were 2 9 Revolutions Emperor Grade Detoxification Pill, 1 9 Revolutions Emperor Grade Slave Breaking Pill, and 1 9 Revolutions Emperor Grade Body Tempering Pill. Among them, the detoxification pill could cure all kinds of poisons, the slave breaking pill could break all kinds of enslavement restrictions, and the body tempering pill could strengthen one's physical body. Since the ancient devils consumed the immemorial devil medicines, the potency of the medicine would be multiplied. Ning Fan only needed to consume 1 9 Revolutions Emperor Grade Detoxification Pill to neutralize the green wave fire poison in his body. He even devoured part of the poison's power, improving the poison power in his body slightly. He didn't need the slave-breaking pill, but he did consume the body-tempering pill. His physical body improved a little, but it was better than nothing. After all, the foundation of his divine spirit body was so high. It was extremely difficult to improve it greatly. After the detoxification, it was time to heal his injuries. After that, Ning Fan began to organize the other spoils of war. Apart from Madame Guihua's dark earth flower Ho, all of the innate magical treasures that he obtained were incinerated. There were 2 reasons why he didn't incinerate this low-grade innate magical treasure. Firstly, even though the offensive power of the dark earth flower Ho wasn't strong, it could increase the growth rate of the plants in the herb garden if it was used to plow the soil regularly. One should know that in the Divine Farmer 100 Herbs Garden, there were not only divine trees like the 7 Treasures Wondrous Tree and the Heaven and Earth Peach Tree, but also the Sword Ancestor's Soul Grass. This little Ho seemed to be able to help the growth of the Sword Ancestor's Soul Grass. In that case, it was worth keeping. Secondly, the name of the dark earth flower Ho contained the word nether. This word vaguely gave Ning Fan a familiar feeling. Ning Fan already knew the name of the thorny gigantic flower from before. It was called the ghost flower of the netherworld. It also contained the word nether. Be it the ghost flower of the netherworld or the dark earth flower Ho, both of them had an extremely faint chi which Ning Fan found familiar. He tried to recall, and found the source of the sense of familiarity. In order to save the Sword Ancestor, he had barged into the head of the Nether Lord, and entered the Nether World. In that place, he had fought side by side with Sage Kai Wei. He had borrowed the power of the Underworld Divine Tree to fight against countless ancient heroic spirits. Ning Fan did not know what kind of tree the Underworld Divine Tree was, what kind of place was the Netherworld and who the Nether Lord was. He only knew that anything that was related to the word nether was not something simple. Especially the ghost flower of the netherworld and the dark earth flower Ho. Both of them had an extremely faint chi of the Nether Lord. There's no mistaking it. The chi on them was very similar to the head of the Nether Lord that day. It was very similar. Could it be that this little Ho had been used by the Nether Lord before? Speaking of which, what was the cultivation level of the Nether Lord who had died many years ago? Judging from Sage Kai Wei's tone, the Nether Lord seemed to be an extremely terrifying being when he was alive. Ning Fan shook his head and suppressed the distracting thoughts in his mind. He summoned the 100 Herb Garden of Divine Farmer, and used the dark earth flower Ho to loosen the soil of the entire 100 Herb Garden. However, after he did that, the plants in the 100 Herb Garden became even more energetic and full of vitality. It was obvious that the dark earth flower Ho was still a very useful tool. It was just that it was not very suitable for combat. The ability of the dark earth flower Ho could aid the growth of plants. However, that kind of auxiliary effect could only be used once every half a year. In that case, Ning Fan did not need to stay at the 100 Herb Garden to plow the soil every day. He only needed to plow the soil regularly when he was free. In this battle, Ning Fan had killed quite a number of immortal emperors. Naturally, he obtained a lot of 10,000 spirit blood from them. After consuming all of them, Ning Fan's divine lattice became slightly stronger. Divine beings who possess divine lattice would not directly strengthen their physical bodies after consuming the 10,000 spirit blood. Instead, it would increase the strength of their entire physical body by strengthening their divine lattice. After consuming the 10,000 spirit blood, Ning Fan sorted out the few useful abilities that he had obtained from killing the immortal emperors in this battle. All of them were the ability to seize the Tao from the void by killing others. As for those that he could use to cultivate, he fused them into the cross-shaped light ring after cultivating them slightly. Among them, there was only one kind of ability that he could not cultivate even though he had obtained the cultivation method. Treasure Fallen Divine Light. Once this technique is activated, all treasures in the world will fall. It was the innate ability of the money demon. It must be used in conjunction with the money demon blood in his body. Otherwise, he would not be able to activate this ability. The demon blood of the money demon? Ning Fan felt a headache. He did not seem to have this kind of demon blood. In other words, he could not use this kind of powerful ability. Once the divine light is activated, magic treasures will fall. Legend has it that there was a magic treasure in the ancient times called the Treasure Fallen Coin. It had a similar ability. Now it seemed like it was related to this Treasure Fallen Divine Light. If I can cultivate the demon blood of the money demon, I will be able to cultivate the Treasure Fallen Divine Light. The reason why that immortal emperor of the foreign race could not use the Treasure Fallen Divine Light to fall my mid-grade innate magic treasure was not because this ability was not strong enough, but because his cultivation base was not high enough. If Daoist Xianwei used the Treasure Fallen Divine Light, my mid-grade innate magic treasure would probably be completely sealed and become unusable. If I can cultivate this technique and refine it into an ink seal, assimilating it into the cross-shaped halos. When the cross-shaped halos are activated, all the magic treasures of the enemies within the area will lose their effectiveness. Ning Fan shook his head, feeling that it was a pity. If the conditions are sufficient, it would not be difficult for him, the descendant of ancient chaos, to cultivate another money demon blood. What was difficult was to gather the conditions to cultivate the demon blood. First of all, Ning Fan was not a member of the money demon race. Thus, he needed some things to help him awaken the demon blood in his body. For example, he could directly devour some of the money demon race's bloodline, or borrow the help of some magic treasures or inheritance tools that contain the money demon race's bloodline. Secondly, he still needed the follow-up cultivation methods of the money demon race. He was not sure if the ancient country trading formation would sell them. Ning Fan used the ancient country trading formation, but the result was disappointing. It turned out that the money demon race was originally a great race in the true world. However, it had already been extinct for countless years. Not only Ning Fan wanted the items related to the money demon race, but many old monsters in the true world also wanted them. Once the demand for them was high, the price would naturally be exorbitant. With Ning Fan's bronze VIP privilege, he still needed to raise his status by 2 to 3 more levels before he could have the authority to bid for such items. His authority is actually not enough? Ning Fan was extremely surprised. His bronze VIP privilege was already enough to buy the third-step detoxification pill. Yet he still needed to raise his status by 2 to 3 more levels before he could participate in the bidding. Moreover, he could not even buy it directly. Are the items related to the money demon actually so precious? Are they a few levels more precious than the third-step detoxification pill? Ning Fan felt that the Treasure Fallen Divine Light that he had mastered was getting a little hot in his hands. Since he could not buy the items related to the money demon race, he would not be able to cultivate the Treasure Fallen Divine Light. Since I can't cultivate it, why don't I sell it? I wonder if the heaven-reaching sect would buy this kind of divine ability. After all, divine abilities were not like magic treasures which were unique. As long as the heaven-reaching sect had the cultivation records of the Treasure Fallen Divine Light, they would not spend money to buy Ning Fan's divine ability. However, Ning Fan did not expect the result this time. The heaven-reaching sect actually did not have the cultivation method of the Treasure Fallen Divine Light. When Ning Fan tentatively asked if the heaven-reaching sect was interested in purchasing any abilities similar to the Treasure Falling Divine Light, the old man who received him became excited all of a sudden. Fellow Taoist actually has the treasure fallen divine light? That is a heaven-opening grade divine ability. Fellow Taoist actually has it. This is impossible. How is this possible? Heaven-opening grade divine ability? Ning Fan was surprised. If it was a divine ability of that level, even if that immortal emperor of the foreign race did not have sufficient cultivation base, it should still be enough to easily seal his mid-grade innate magic treasure. Could it be that the treasure fallen divine light that he obtained was not the real one? Sure enough, when Ning Fan told the old man about the description of the treasure fallen divine light, the latter really became silent for a long time. It was as if someone had poured cold water on his head, and he could not recover from it for a long time. After a long time, he said to Ning Fan speechlessly, "If it wasn't because I already have a good relationship with fellow Taoist, I would definitely think that fellow Taoist is purposely making fun of me. Forget it. Even though the divine ability in fellow Taoist's hand is not the real treasure fallen divine light, it can also be considered as a type of pseudo-divine light. It's already very extraordinary to be able to drop a low-grade innate magic treasure. To be honest, my sect has already mastered more than 100 types of similar pseudo-divine light. The price varies according to the degree of imitation. As long as the pseudo-divine light in fellow Taoist's hand is not one of them, my sect will be very willing to buy another type of pseudo-divine light. However, the price will definitely not be too high." Ning Fan nodded his head and sent the content of the treasure fallen divine light to the old man through the ancient country's trading formation. Ning Fan trusted the heaven-reaching sect very much. He was not worried that the old man would take his divine ability without paying for it. He was just worried that the old man might already have this type of pseudo-divine light, and was unwilling to buy it. Or perhaps, the old man might be willing to buy his divine ability, but the price would not be too high. The price that the heaven-reaching sect received from them had always been very low. That was why Ning Fan had never been willing to sell cultivation resources to them. This time, he was just trying to make use of the waste. That was why he was looking for trouble to sell the treasure fallen divine light. When Ning Fan found out that the treasure fallen divine light in his hand was just a type of pseudo-divine light, he no longer had any extravagant hope of earning money from this technique. Unfortunately, life was always full of comedy and uncertainty. Even though his treasure fallen divine light was a type of pseudo-divine light, after the appraisal of the old man from the heaven-reaching sect, he concluded that Ning Fan's divine light was the most similar to the pseudo-divine light among all the pseudo-divine lights that the heaven-reaching sect possessed. This technique did not seem to be an imitation at all. If one had to describe it, it was more like what the Money Demon clan used to build their foundation before they cultivated the real treasure fallen divine light. The value of this technique was not comparable to the other pseudo-divine lights at all. Fellow Taoist, the value of this technique is too great, and I do not have the authority to judge its true value. I need to consult the higher-ups of the church. Fellow Taoist, please wait a moment. This old man will go and ask the elder pavilion. We will definitely set a price that will satisfy fellow Taoist. The trading formation of the ancient country fell silent for a while. It seemed that the elder of the sky-reaching church on the opposite side had gone to ask for instructions from the higher-ups. Ning Fan could not help but burst into laughter. Originally, he had lost hope in the pseudo-treasure god light, but he didn't expect that there would be a sudden turn of events, and he was told that this technique might sell for a high price. How interesting. In this way, he should be able to pay off part of the money he owed the sky-reaching church. Not long after, there was a response from the other side of the array. However, this time, the person who received Ning Fan was no longer the old man from the heaven-reaching cult. Instead, it was a middle-aged man who spoke with a dignified tone. Since they were separated by the ancient country's trading formation, Ning Fan naturally could not sense the true cultivation base of this middle-aged man. However, just by listening to his voice, Ning Fan felt as if he was talking to Sage Kai Wei in the past. It was extremely pressurizing and he was instantly shocked. One had to know that Kai Wei Saint was the desolate saint of the three saints of primordial nirvana desolate. Could it be that the mysterious middle-aged man who received him is also a desolate saint? That middle-aged man did not talk nonsense with Ning Fan. He seemed to be very busy and had a lot of things to deal with. However, because of this technique, he still spared some time to deal with the transaction with Ning Fan. The heaven-reaching church would never bully their customers because of their size, let alone do anything that goes against their integrity. Ning Fan had already sent the complete technique to the heaven-reaching church. Now, it was the heaven-reaching church's turn to pay Ning Fan. What Ning Fan did not expect was that the treasure godlight that he had inadvertently obtained was actually sold at a high price of 30,000 gold coins. 30,000 gold coins? An ordinary innate magic treasure would only cost around 100 gold coins. However, the treasure godlight that he had obtained by chance was actually so valuable. What exactly was the background of the money demon clan that had disappeared in the history of the true world? It was not even a genuine technique, but this technique could still be sold at 30,000 gold coins. In this way, not only did Ning Fan pay off his debt of a few hundred gold coins, but he also received 29,000 gold coins as pocket money. Moreover, under the suggestion of the middle-aged man who seemed to be a desolate saint, Ning Fan's VIP privilege was directly raised to a silver-grade VIP. Other than enjoying more discounts in the heaven-reaching church, the variety of goods that he could purchase had also increased. Fellow Taoist, do you have any other items that you want to sell to my church? If you do, you can take them out in the future. As long as the items are good enough, my church will definitely give you a satisfactory price. Before the middle-aged man left, it seemed like he still wanted to buy some other items from Ning Fan. He faintly felt that it was not a coincidence that Ning Fan was able to take out such a precious technique. This person should have more precious treasures that he could sell. Unfortunately, Ning Fan did not plan to sell any other items. Of course, he still had other items that could interest the heaven-reaching church. However, the nature of those items was different from the treasure godlight. Either Ning Fan would not be able to use them after selling them, or the implications were too great, and he could not show them to others. All in all, this transaction was successfully completed. Ning Fan did not suffer any loss. He had just made a copy of the treasure godlight, and sold it to the heaven-reaching church. Even the elderly man of the heaven-reaching church had been promoted because of this transaction. Of course, he would still be the one who would serve Ning Fan in the future. After everything was done, Ning Fan was in a good mood. He began to check the last spoil of war. It was a seed that emitted ghastly ghost chi. It fell from Madame Ghost Flower's primordial spirit after she had withered and died. By using the ancient communication ability, Ning Fan easily found out the origin of this seed. Blood-packed flower. It was the contract to summon the ghost flower of the netherworld. According to Madame Ghost Flower's memory, she accidentally obtained this flower seed before she became an immortal emperor. She relied on this seed to advance to the immortal emperor realm step by step. As long as he made a contract with this seed, he would become the only contractor of the ghost flower of the netherworld in this illusory world. There was only one ghost flower of the netherworld in the endless cycle of reincarnation. No one knew where this flower came from or where it was now. The only thing that was known was that the contractor could summon the ghost flower of the netherworld to help him in battle. The higher the level of the contract, the more powerful the summoned ghost flower would be. However, making a contract would have a huge side effect on the contractor. The ghost flower of the netherworld would produce poison in the contractor's body from time to time. This poison could only be released through copulation between a large number of men and women. When the poison was severe, the contractor could not only have sex with one person but also several people at the same time. This was the reason why Madame Ghost Flower was so promiscuous. She needed to release the poison through copulation. That day, she was in a hurry to have sex with Ning Fan because the poison in her body had accumulated too much. She needed a man who was strong enough to help her detoxify the poison. She fell in love with Ning Fan. Unfortunately, Ning Fan felt that this woman was too shrewd and seemed to have ulterior motives. Thus he rejected her. To most cultivators, it was a burden to have sex with someone frequently. Not everyone had a large number of wives and concubines to detoxify the poison. Some people even had special cultivation methods that prevented them from having sex too much. These people were obviously not suitable to be the contractor of the ghost flower of the netherworld. On the contrary, Ning Fan was very suitable. He smiled faintly, This ghost flower of the netherworld was like a tailor-made item for him. If the side effect of making a contract was just releasing poison, Ningfan did not mind making a contract with the ghost flower of the netherworld. According to Madame Ghost Flower's memory, he dripped a drop of his blood on the blood-packed flower. All of a sudden, circles of blood marks appeared on the flower. Then, a cold and despairing voice of a woman reached Ningfan's ears through the flower. Swear on your great heart, devil, that if you meet me and save me, the contract will be established. Swear on your great heart, devil, that if you meet me and save me, the contract will be established. Could the one who spoke be the true form of the ghost flower of the netherworld? If I meet her and save her, is this the price of making a contract? It doesn't seem to be very big. All right. I promise that if I meet you, I will do my best to save you. However, I can't guarantee whether I can save you or not. Ningfan did not make any promises casually, even though he was not sure if he could meet the true form of the ghost flower of the netherworld in his lifetime. What if he did? The other party seemed to be very famous. Even she needed to be saved. What kind of predicament would she be facing? Even if Ningfan met her, he did not have the confidence to really save the ghost flower of the netherworld. Based on his personality, he would never make promises recklessly. Once he made a promise, he would do his best to fulfill it. He did not know if his ambiguous words could make a contract. If he could, it would be a happy ending for both parties. If he could not, he would also not make promises that he could not fulfill just to force a contract. The voice of the ghost flower of the netherworld was obviously hesitant. Since ancient times, countless people had made contracts with her. Countless people had given her hope and obtained her power. However, all of them had lied to her. Ningfan was the first person who did not give her hope for the sake of power. He only said that if he meets her, he would do his best. I will do my best. Are you really willing to do your best? Contractor. The ghost flower of the netherworld let out a bitter smile. She did not believe that Ningfan was really willing to do his best. She had been lied to too many times. She could not trust anyone anymore. However, she had a reason that she had to leave this prison. She must leave this place. She must. Contractor, I hope that when you meet me, you will really be willing to do your best. Now you can obtain my power. Of course, as a reward for making the contract, I will give you a gift. This person was originally one of the strong enemies that you killed that day. Now he is your undying ghost pawn. If you still want to create other undying ghost pawns in the future, you will have to work hard on your own. Most of my power has been sealed. I can't help you much. Goodbye, contractor. I will wait for you to come. I will wait for you to come. Boom! A loud explosion suddenly resounded in the profound Yin world. Ningfan felt a massive summoning force surging into his body. With a thought, countless thorny gigantic flowers appeared beneath his feet. All of them were the ghost flowers of the netherworld. The countless ghost flowers swallowed and spat out Yin souls. When those Yin souls gathered, they actually formed a gigantic white-scaled snake with 8 heads, and the chi of a half-saint realm expert. Is this my undying ghost pawn? Ningfan was stunned. This gigantic 8-headed snake seems to be the myriad saint dragon king that I killed that day. Is it really undying? Myriad saint greets my master. Boom! The 8 heads of the gigantic 8-headed snake prostrated on the ground, showing their submission. He had retained all the memories related to the battle. However, he had lost all the memories related to his identity as the myriad saint dragon king. All that was left in his heart was absolute loyalty to Ningfan. This was the power of an undying ghost pawn. If Ningfan was also killed that day and turned into an undying ghost pawn, he would end up like the current myriad saint dragon king. Interesting. The 8 heads of the myriad saint dragon king are already hard to kill in the first place. If he turns into an undying creature, I'm afraid even a true half-saint realm expert would find it difficult to deal with. Ningfan smiled. After signing the contract, he seemed to have gained another powerful helper. Moreover, it was the kind of undying existence that he did not need to worry about his subordinates getting hurt. Do I want to test the degree of undying of this undying ghost pawn? Ningfan's lips curled into a smile. He summoned the ocean-defying sword and covered it with the Life Slayer sword. The 8 heads of the myriad Saint Dragon King immediately shuddered. He did not have the memories of his previous life. However, Ning Fan's sword light actually made him, an undying creature, feel a fatal threat. He was still afraid of Ning Fan after all. Thus he did not dare to disobey Ning Fan's orders at all. The undying ghost pawn also had its own pride. However, he did not dare to vent his pride on Ning Fan at all. Chapter 1148. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Ning Fan had beaten myriad Saint Dragon King to the ground. Ning Fan was very satisfied with the result of the test. If he does not use the life-slaying sword, he would not be able to cause any effective damage to myriad Saint Dragon King. If he uses the life-slaying sword, myriad Saint Dragon King would at least be able to withstand a few hundred attacks from Ning Fan before getting injured. His endurance was much higher than those half-completed undying ghost soldiers. In other words, even if Ning Fan's enemies happened to have some methods that could restrain undying beings, they would not be able to kill myriad Saint Dragon King with a single strike. Moreover, if the enemies did not have similar methods, it would be difficult for even a first-level quasi-sage to kill myriad Saint Dragon King. You're not bad. Ning Fan was in a good mood now that he had another powerful fighter. He praised myriad Saint Dragon King. Thank you for your compliment, master. Myriad Saint Dragon King answered weakly. His body was covered with cuts and bruises. The wounds on his body were all caused by Ning Fan's life-slaying sword. They could not heal on their own with the recovery power of an undying being. He was lying on the ground. He did not even have the strength to move after being beaten by Ning Fan. His 8 snake heads were filled with fear, not daring to look Ning Fan in the eye. He felt very frustrated. His sense of glory as an undying ghost soldier was shattered by Ning Fan's. Ning Fan naturally would not comfort myriad Saint Dragon King. He removed the remaining life-slaying sword chi from the Dragon King's body. The Dragon King's injuries were instantly healed. The recovery power of an undying being was truly heaven-defying. When Ning Fan performed a hand seal and removed the summoning of the Netherworld ghost flowers, myriad Saint Dragon King, who was an undying ghost soldier, disappeared along with the summoned Netherworld ghost flowers. Undying ghost soldiers could not move freely in the Yang world. They could only stay in the Netherworld. In order to summon myriad Saint Dragon King to participate in the battle, one must first summon the Netherworld ghost flowers to turn the battlefield into the Netherworld. This was probably the only trouble in using myriad Saint Dragon King. As for the Netherworld ghost flower, its function was not only to change the battlefield's environment, but also to absorb the souls of the dead, to create undying ghost soldiers. When Ning Fan made the contract with the Netherworld ghost flower's true body, 3 different summoning methods of the Netherworld ghost flower appeared in his mind. Beginner summon. The contractor does not need to pay any price to summon a small number of ghost flowers of the underworld, change the battlefield environment, and release an immortal ghost soldier to participate in the battle. Beginner summon cannot release more than 2 immortal ghost soldiers. Intermediate summoning. The contractor needs to pay a certain amount of blood essence to engrave a blood array. It can summon a medium-sized Netherworld ghost flower and release up to 10 undying ghost soldiers to participate in battle. Advanced summoning. The contractor needs to offer millions of souls as sacrifices to summon a large number of ghost flowers of the underworld. If the contractor is willing to give up an additional 10 million years of lifespan, he can summon all the previous sacrifices and turn them into semi-finished immortal ghost soldiers to temporarily participate in the battle. The semi-finished ghost soldiers exist for 2 hours. Advanced summoning could be used to create undying ghostly soldiers. The basic success rate was 50%, but there was a deviation based on the strength of the target. He could only create 1 undying ghostly soldier in 24 hours. Under advanced summoning, the contractor can use an unlimited number of immortal ghost soldiers, giving up 10 million years of lifespan. Back then, in order to release a large number of semi-finished undying ghost soldiers, Madame Ghostflower had instantly turned old and ugly. This was probably the reason. Ning Fan did not want to learn from Madame Ghostflower and carelessly give up his lifespan. Even if he wants to perform advanced summoning, he would certainly not summon a large number of semi-finished ghost soldiers. In the following days, Ning Fan spent a lot of time practicing the summoning of the Netherworld Ghost Flower, until he was very familiar with it. Only then did he end his seclusion. Now, with his help, the 9th path had been completely reclaimed. He did not plan to stay here any longer. Among the 12 waterways, there was only the 6th path that had yet to be completely conquered. That place needed him. He bid farewell to the Eastern Heaven cultivators of the 9th path, and rushed to the 6th path through the night. The 6th path was the waterway that connected to the Northern Heaven. The foreign races had deployed a large number of troops here. According to the information Ning Fan obtained, there were 3 half-step saints of the foreign races, 22 immortal emperors of the foreign races, and more than 200 immortal kings and immortal venerables on the surface of the 6th path. Under the obstruction of such a large number of troops, it was naturally difficult to conquer the 6th path. Even if Old Devil Bai and Emperor Tsang were here, they could only barely defend themselves. What made the Eastern Heaven cultivators of the 6th path happy was that Old Devil Bai, the strongest devil of the previous generation in the Eastern Heaven, had displayed his invincible might some time ago. Under the situation where he was besieged by 3 half-step saints, he actually managed to severely injure one of the enemy's half-step saints. According to the onlookers, that half-step saint's injuries were extremely severe. His cultivation base had almost fallen. Without several 100,000 years of recuperation, it was impossible for him to participate in the battle again. Even if his recuperation is over, his foundation would certainly be damaged, and it would be hard for his cultivation base to advance any further. In other words, within a short period of time, there were only 2 half-step saints left in the great army of the 6th path who could still participate in the battle. This was an opportunity for the Border River Alliance to launch a counterattack against the foreign races. This was a piece of good news. It made many Eastern Heaven cultivators see the hope of completely defeating the foreign races. Unfortunately, these Eastern Heaven cultivators did not feel happy for too long before they received another piece of bad news. A 4th half-step saint of the foreign races had appeared. Moreover, he carried some kind of secret medicine which easily healed all the injuries of the previous half-step saint. All of a sudden, the number of half-step saints of the 6th path increased to 4. To the Border River Alliance, it could be said to be a huge blow. Several days later, the 6th path, the Black Tortoise Pass. The Black Tortoise Pass was the last impregnable pass of the 6th path. It was also the last pass that the foreign races possessed above the water. At this moment, the foreign races in the Black Tortoise Pass were holding a banquet to welcome the sudden arrival of the 4th half-step saint. This half-step saint who had rushed to the 6th path was none other than Taoist Xianwei, who had fled in panic from the 9th path that day. It was he who had used an immemorial magic medicine close to the 10th revolution to revive the half-step saint who had been seriously injured by Old Devil White. Haha. If it weren't for Elder Brother's generous gift of medicine, I, Shui Bun, wouldn't have been able to recover without several 100,000 years. Come I Shui Bun, toast to Elder Brother. A Water Buffalo Clan half-step saint with a bull's head and a human body said gratefully. His name was Water Buffalo Deity, and he was the beloved general of the foreign race's great divine priest. Hee, my worthy younger brother and I hit it off at first sight. These medicinal pills are not enough to express my gratitude. Taoist Xianwei drank a cup of wine, and suddenly thought of something from the past, and let out a long sigh. Elder Brother, why are you sighing? Water Buffalo Deity was startled and asked. The other 2 half-step saints of the foreign race beside him also wore puzzled looks. One of them was a mortal crane of the Black Crane clan. He looked like an ordinary old man of the human race. However, there was a pair of black crane wings on his back. The other one was a merman named Ahui Nan of the Merman clan. His lower body was that of a fish's tail while his upper body was covered with armor. He looked extremely handsome and feminine. He did not look like a man but a woman. Sigh. I just thought of a despicable brat. I can't wait to tear him into pieces, but I can't defeat him. That's why I'm sighing. Taoist Xianwei explained. Oh, what kind of brat is he? Even an ancient half-step saint like Elder Brother can't defeat him? Water Buffalo Deity was quite surprised. You guys must have heard of this person's name before. His name is Ningfan. Some time ago, I suffered a great loss because of him in the ninth path. What? Elder brother's greatest enemy is actually that Yama brat? Humph. Don't worry, elder brother. I have received reliable news that that brat will come to the sixth path in a few days. At that time, we will attack together. Do you think 4 half-step saints can't defeat that Yama brat? Water buffalo deity said confidently. That's right. This Yama brat is the #1 enemy on the Z-Way Galaxy's must-kill list. When he comes to the sixth path, we will kill him together and split the credit equally. When immortal he thought of the reward for killing Ningfan, he let out a greedy smile. Humph. The white-robed Yama really deserves to be killed. If it wasn't for him, how could Aphrodite possibly be put on death row by the great divine priest after returning to the sixth path? He bewitched Aphrodite and caused her to betray her faith. He deserves to be killed. If he dares to come to the sixth path, I am willing to join hands with Daoist Xianwei to kill this bastard. Ahui murmured with hatred. His hatred for Ningfan was much deeper than any other member of the foreign races. As soon as Daoist Xianwei heard that the 3 half-step saints of the foreign races were willing to help him, he smiled with satisfaction. Then he thought of Ningfan's various techniques and said with fear, that Yama brat deserves to be killed. However, his techniques are really powerful. I have no idea how he managed to subdue a Tao Destruction Lightning Infant and make it fight for him willingly. Only quasi-saints can suppress this lightning infant. What? Subdue the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant. I thought that rumor was fake. Could it be that it's actually true? That Yama brat really captured a Tao Destruction Lightning Infant? How arrogant is the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant? Even if it's captured alive, it's impossible for it to submit to any living being other than the Dao Hun clan. Fellow Taoist, are you kidding me? The expressions of Water Buffalo God and the others changed. They could not believe the information that Daoist Xianwei gave them. The scariness of a Tao Destruction Lightning Infant was not just a rumor. It was already very strange for it to be captured. If someone told them that the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant actually took the initiative to submit to Ningfan, they would definitely not believe it. In ancient times, there was once a saint of the Z-Way Immortal Cultivators who captured a Tao Destruction Lightning Infant. However, even that saint could not make it submit to him. How could Ningfan do something that even a saint could not? This is absolutely true. If you don't believe me, I can show you the recording of that battle. Daoist Xianwei took out the recording jade slip and showed it to Water Buffalo God and the others. After Water Buffalo God and the others saw the contents of the jade slip, all of them sucked in a breath of cold air. They finally believed it. This brat can actually make the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant recognize him as its master. If he attacks the sixth path, how are we going to defend against him? Water Buffalo God and the others said with an unpleasant expression, I have a plan that can destroy the Tao Destruction Lightning Infant. However, I need your great divine priest to invite someone to help us. Daoist Xianwei said mysteriously. Invite someone? Fellow Daoist, please don't joke around. Our Z-Way Immortal Cultivators have been sealed by Immortal Sovereign Z-Do. Within a certain period of time, the number of experts that can come out of the water is extremely limited. Now that the quota has been used up, the great divine priest can't send more experts to help us. If it wasn't because of this, there are so many half-step saints and half-step saints in our Z-Way Immortal Cultivators. Besides, we also have Lord Blood God. Why would we be afraid of that Yama brat? Say, at the end of the day, the thing that restricts the development of our Z-Way Immortal Cultivators is still that Immortal Sovereign Seal. However, it doesn't matter. In a few more months, that Immortal Sovereign Seal will. Water Buffalo God and the others didn't know what to think. Each and every one of them was filled with longing for the future of the Z-Way Immortal Cultivators. When Daoist Xianwei saw that Water Buffalo God and the others misunderstood his meaning, he explained, the person that I want to ask for help is not a living person, but an ancestor spirit. Ancestor spirit? When Water Buffalo God and the others heard this, they were all stunned. Then they sternly refused. No. The dead are already gone. How can we, the descendants, Be willing to summon the ancestor's ancestor spirit to participate in the battle. Moreover, time is short. We simply can't gather the materials needed for the summoning. You don't need to worry about the materials. This old man just happens to have some of the materials needed for the summoning ceremony. As long as everyone agrees to this matter, wouldn't it be easy for us to kill that Yama brat? Ancestor spirit? What's that? Suddenly, a light voice came out of nowhere and reverberated above the entire Black Tortoise Mountain Pass. Whether it was Daoist Xianwei or Water Buffalo God, and the other experts from the different clans, their expressions changed greatly when they heard this voice. Judging from the aura, the person who spoke was not an expert from the different clans, but an Eastern Sky cultivator. Could it be that there was an Eastern Sky expert who didn't know life from death, and invaded the inner part of the Black Tortoise Mountain Pass? Daoist Xianwei was the most shocked, because he recognized the owner of this voice. They had just fought on the 9th road not long ago. How dare you? How dare you invade the Black Tortoise Pass? You're courting death. The Water Buffalo God slammed the table and stood up. In his anger, he let out an earth-shattering roar. The roar shook the space above Black Tortoise Pass, and a white-robed young man fell out. He looked at Black Tortoise Pass below with an indifferent expression. This person was none other than Ning Fan, who was rushing to reinforce the 6th group. Whether it was the 3rd route or the 6th route, Jihao had been fighting against the non-humankind army all by himself. He had grown fond of fighting against tens of thousands of non-humankind beings. Therefore, this time, after he arrived at the 6th path, he didn't report to Emperor Tsang. Instead, he killed his way to the Black Tortoise Gate. He wanted to wipe out all the foreign races in the 6th path. Now that he had the Tao Annihilation Thunder Infant and the Undying Saint, it was enough for him to destroy the Black Tortoise Pass. Damn it! It was actually the white-robed King of Hell. He actually killed his way to my Black Tortoise Pass alone. Is he crazy? How dare he attack the Black Tortoise Pass alone? He's really not playing by the rules. He really doesn't put us in his eyes at all. The Water Buffalo God and the others were shocked and enraged. However, their anger was just an act. They were actually shocked. How could they still remain calm? In the face of Ning Fan, who was infamous for his ferocity, they could not remain calm. Even though the 3 of them were cursing Ning Fan's arrogance, their hearts were beating wildly as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Countless bloody battles had proven Ning Fan's strength. This young man alone might be more difficult and dangerous to deal with than the entire allied army of the Border River Alliance combined. Damn it. Why did he choose this time to attack the Black Tortoise Pass? I haven't even started setting up the formation yet. I haven't summoned the ancestral spirits of the foreign races to deal with him yet. Daoist Xuanwei's expression was extremely unpleasant. He had used an immemorial devil medicine that was close to the 10th revolution to win the favor of the half-step saint of the 6th path. He had spent a lot of effort to gather the materials needed to summon the ancestral spirits of the foreign races to set up a formation. Just as he spoke, he planned to persuade these stubborn foreign races to listen to his method of summoning the ancestral spirits of their ancestors to deal with Ning Fan's Tao Annihilation Thunder Infant. What a perfect plan. However, why did Ning Fan already come knocking on their door when his plan had just started halfway? According to the nature of the allied army of the Border River Alliance, shouldn't they be defending their turtle shell and wait for the foreign races to attack before launching a counterattack? Even though I don't know what the ancestral spirits in your plan are, it seems like my appearance has completely disrupted your plan. What a pity. You guys don't seem to have the chance to summon those ancestral spirits anymore. Ning Fan sneered. He formed hand seals with all 10 of his fingers. Countless netherworld ghost flowers were summoned out of thin air with the Black Tortoise Gate as the center. They began to grow crazily and thorns grew everywhere. The 8-headed Wansheng Dragon King entered the battlefield as an undying ghostly soldier. Ning Fan also summoned the Tao Annihilation Thunder Infant. He rode on the ancestral lightning sparrow, and combined the lightning power of both of them. It was much more terrifying than any half-step Saint Realm expert. Kill. As soon as Ning Fan gave the order, Myriad Saint Dragon King, and the undying lightning infant immediately charged towards the army of foreign races who were drinking and having fun below. It was a perfect surprise attack. The enemy's army did not even have time to hold their weapons properly. They did not even have the time to get into formation. Chapter 1149. The Black Tortoise Pass was the first impregnable pass of the sixth path. Its formation was originally extremely strong, but it only had destructive power against the foreign races. Even if the foreign races defend the pass, they would not have the geographical advantage. Ningfan's surprise attack came too suddenly. Other than a few foreign races who were in charge of patrolling, most of the foreign races were participating in the banquet. They did not carry any weapons, nor were they in a military formation. Moreover, many of them were drunk and had yet to wake up. That was the second disadvantage. Under the astonished and terrified gazes of all the experts of the foreign races, Ningfan's group invaded the Black Tortoise Pass and began to wreak havoc. Daoist Xianwei wanted to do something. However, before he could do anything, the Dao Destruction Lightning Infant had already ridden the ancestral lightning sparrow and dashed towards him with a cold smile. "We meet again, little devil scorpion. This time, I must keep you here. I will never let you escape again." Laying waved his chubby little hand, and a large number of lightning pillars struck towards Daoist Xianwei. Even though Daoist Xianwei had just barely activated the second stage of his primordial true body, he was still charred on the inside and tender on the outside. It was a horrible sight to behold. Why does the arrogant lightning infant clan have to submit to a lowly cultivator in the last cultivation era? Daoist Xianwei roared unwillingly as he could not defeat the Dao Destruction Lightning Infant. "How dare you say that my master is lowly? I won't allow you to insult my master." The Dao Destruction Lightning Infant was instantly enraged. It was as if the god that it worshipped and loved the most was being desecrated by someone else. All of a sudden, the destructive power of the lightning pillars that struck at Daoist Xianwei became even more violent, leaving him with no chance to fight back. In fact, the Dao Destruction Lightning Infant that Ningfan had captured was not strong enough to defeat a being at the same level as Daoist Xianwei. However, she was not fighting alone. She was also riding the ancestral lightning sparrow. The ancestral lightning sparrow was not strong on its own. However, if the lightning power of the lightning sparrow clan fuses with the lightning power of the lightning infant clan, it would greatly increase the lightning power of the lightning infant clan. What Ningfan did not know about was the result of Black Devil's meticulous guidance. It was based on his understanding of the Dao Hun clan, as a member of the Nine Raccoon clan. Laying suppressed Daoist Xianwei, while Undying Myriad Saint single-handedly suppressed Water Buffalo Deity, Immortal Crane, and a Huinan 3 half-saints. Based on Dragon King Wansheng's original strength, there was no way he could take on all three of them at once. But who asked Dragon King Wansheng to become an undying being? A half-sage who could resurrect infinitely was enough to make a true quasi-sage fight a bitter battle. So it wasn't strange for him to suppress 3 half-sages. If he really had to say it, the combined power of the Water Buffalo Deity and the other 2 semi-saints was not as powerful as Daoist Xianwei alone. Wansheng, you betrayed us. You actually surrendered to Zido Immortal Xiao. Have you forgotten the blood feud between your ancestors? When Water Buffalo and the others saw that even the combined strength of 3 half-sages was not a match for Myriad Saint Dragon King, they turned pale with fright. Other than shock, there was also rage. Rage at the betrayal of Dragon King Wansheng. If he was the real Myriad Saint Dragon King, he would never surrender to Ningfan, even if he wanted to drag out an ignoble existence. Unfortunately, the current Myriad Saint Dragon King was just an undying ghost pawn created by the ghost flower of the Netherworld, using Myriad Saint Dragon King's death. Even though he possessed the cultivation base and battle memories of Myriad Saint Dragon King, he could not be considered as the real Myriad Saint Dragon King. Naturally, he could not understand what Water Buffalo and the others meant by betrayal. Betrayal? When had he ever betrayed his master? Since the day he was born, he only had one master, and that was Ningfan. In this lifetime, he would never betray his master. This was the belief of an undying ghost pawn. Million Snakes Formation. Dragon King Wansheng's 8 snake heads spat out 1,000,000 white shadows. Each of the white shadows was a venomous little snake that attacked at an unimaginably fast speed. The sea of 1,000,000 snakes drowned the 3 half-sages. When Dragon King Wansheng was still alive, any one of them could easily kill all of his 1,000,000 little snakes. However, the current myriad Saint Dragon King possessed the characteristics of an undying being. The little snakes that he summoned also possessed a certain degree of undying power, which made them hard to kill. As a result, the water buffalo and the others who were drowned by the sea of snakes immediately complained incessantly. They could not stop the attacks of Dragon King Wansheng's snake formation at all. Even the 4 half-sages were being suppressed. Ning Fan's opponents were the low-grade foreign races, the 200 over immortal venerables and immortal kings, as well as the 22 immortal emperors. Ning Fan had activated the flame lightning fire to its maximum. Half of the entire Black Tortoise Mountain Pass was engulfed by the sea of flames. The low-grade foreign races who came into contact with the flame lightning fire were immediately burned to ashes. In just a few breaths, more than 100,000 foreign races had already been incinerated by the flame lightning fire. Thistles and thorns were growing everywhere. The sea of flames was wreaking havoc. Battle cries and screams shook the heavens. This was the current hellish scene in the Black Tortoise Mountain Pass. Damn it! Quickly extinguish the flames of this devil king. A few great emperors of the foreign races who were experts in water element magic took action at the same time. They summoned clouds and rain and attracted waves to extinguish Ning Fan's flames. However, was this an ordinary flame? It was a dignified mid-grade innate flame. Besides, it was cast by Ning Fan's 13,500 tribulations magic power. How could an ordinary immortal emperor extinguish it? The sea of flames evaporated the rainwater and waves into steam. More flames rose into the sky, burning the enormous physical bodies of the immortal emperors of the foreign races who were trying to extinguish the flames. The few immortal emperors expended a large amount of magic power to forcefully disperse the small amount of flames that burned their bodies. Before they could heave a sigh of relief, Ning Fan had already launched more attacks at them. Among the 22 immortal emperors of the foreign races, some of them were continuously injured. They were knocked down from the sky by the Tree of 7 Treasures, and were severely injured while coughing out blood. Their heads were cut off by the Sword of Fate severing, and their blood splattered across the sky. They were smashed by the sun, moon, and stars' steel. They were pierced by the sea-defying sword, and thousands of heaven-hooking jades exploded into pieces. Ordinary immortal emperors would usually be severely injured by Ning Fan in just a single move. Those immortal kings and immortal venerables were even more miserable. Even if they formed groups of 3 to 5, several of them would still be killed by Ning Fan in just a single move. They were no match for Ning Fan at all. As for the low-grade foreign races whose cultivation bases were lower, they had long been tortured by Ning Fan's sea of flames. They could not find a chance to attack Ning Fan at all. The low-grade foreign races were constantly engulfed by the sea of flames. 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. The number of low-grade foreign races Ning Fan killed increased. When the number of people he killed exceeded 1,000,000, the ghost flowers of the netherworld that were growing in small numbers in this place suddenly began to multiply, automatically meeting the conditions for a high-grade summoning. Under such conditions, Ning Fan had a certain chance of turning someone he killed in this battle into an undying ghost soldier similar to Myriad Saint Dragon King. As he slaughtered a large number of people, the killing technique also fed back the blood and flesh essence chi of the dead people to Ning Fan, causing his aura force to grow stronger and stronger. More and more immortal venerables and immortal kings died in Ning Fan's hands. Only an immortal Emperor realm expert would be extremely difficult for Ning Fan to kill them. Ordinary immortal emperors of the foreign races were no match for Ning Fan, but there were 22 of them after all. If they joined forces, it would not be easy for Ning Fan to kill them. Of course, it was also not easy for these immortal emperors to injure Ning Fan. When Ning Fan activated his eternal true body and the cross-shaped halo, even a quasi-saint realm expert would find it hard to break his defense. Even if he withstood a few of the attacks of mere immortal emperors at the same time, he would not be injured. Of course, If Ning Fan did not dodge their attacks, he would still be severely injured if he was hit by the attacks of 22 immortal emperors at the same time. Even a true quasi-saint realm expert would not be able to stand still and let a group of immortal emperors attack him together. Ning Fan's speed was extremely fast. It was difficult for the attacks of the enemies to capture his figure. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven for the attacks of 22 immortal emperors to injure Ning Fan at the same time. Moreover, Ning Fan possessed the power of yin-yang poison. Poison could kill people without them noticing. If it is used well, it would be much more mysterious and difficult to guard against than any other ability. One of the immortal emperors from the Ice Leech clan found the opportunity when the golden flames on Ning Fan's body flickered unsteadily with the help of more than 10 immortal emperors. Then he bit Ning Fan's true body with his enormous mouth, causing blood to splash everywhere. Then he sucked Ning Fan's blood. That immortal emperor of the Ice Leech clan was extremely pleased with himself for succeeding in his attack. However, he did not know that everything was within Ning Fan's calculations. Ning Fan had purposely shown an opening and got bitten by the enemy. It was just some blood. Ning Fan was willing to give it up. That immortal emperor of the Ice Leech clan who had sucked Ning Fan's blood did not feel pleased for long. His face suddenly darkened as the deadly poison attacked his heart. There was a deadly poison in Ning Fan's blood that he had sucked. It was a deadly poison with the Fire Toad Saint poison as the main poison, and the Green Wave Fire poison as the supplementary poison. It was definitely not something a sixth tribulation immortal emperor like him could withstand. In just 3 breaths, the huge face of that immortal emperor of the Ice Leech clan was covered with fiery spots. It was the proof that he had been poisoned by the fire poison. In just 10 breaths, his internal organs had already been burnt through by the fire poison. In the 24th breath, his physical body spontaneously combusted without any fire. That fire was poisonous fire. It burned his enormous physical body into ashes. Even his demon soul was on the verge of death from the poison. Then he was captured by Ning Fan and thrown into the divine refining cauldron. All the immortal emperors of the foreign races were shocked. None of them expected that Ning Fan would have such a terrifying poison in his body. Daoist Xianwei, who was struggling to withstand Lei Ying's attacks, wore an unpleasant expression. How could he not see the traces of his green wave fire poison in Ning Fan's poison power? He did not expect that Ning Fan had actually given this young man a benefit when he did not die from his poison the last time. His poison power now contained a trace of the green wave fire poison's characteristics. If there was one, there would be 2. If Ning Fan could kill an immortal emperor, he could kill more immortal emperors. The death of the immortal emperor of the Ice Leech clan made the other immortal emperors wary of Ning Fan's poison power. Unfortunately, there are some things that you can't guard against even if you want to. Ning Fan had secretly learned too many methods of using poison from Daoist Xianwei. He had all kinds of methods, making it hard for others to guard against him. When Ning Fan used his dark illusion technique to pull the group of immortal emperors into his world of darkness, 2 of them were directly poisoned to death by the light that suddenly appeared in the darkness due to their carelessness. When Ning Fan charged at them with brute force, another immortal emperor was directly poisoned by the poison power and died with a blood-curdling scream. Wind, thunder, rain, lightning, light and darkness. Even Ning Fan's gaze and Dao sense actually contained poison power, making it hard for others to guard against them. As the number of immortal emperors of the foreign races continued to decrease, Ning Fan's advantage grew bigger and bigger. Gradually, even if he did not use any sneak attacks, he was still strong enough to crush the remaining immortal emperors head-on. When the number of immortal emperors of the foreign races was reduced to 12, Ning Fan actually did not dodge or evade. Instead, he withstood the attacks of the 12 immortal emperors and forcefully rushed to one of them. Then he swung his sword against the sea and killed that immortal emperor, captured the demon's soul, and refined it to death. Rumbled a thunderbolt that was condensed from Golden Emperor Qi suddenly fell from the sky and landed on the battlefield. It actually formed an immortal Emperor Dao fruit that emitted a bright golden light. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with surprise and he kept the immortal Emperor Dao fruit. Ever since the Realm River meeting, he had slaughtered a lot of enemies on the Realm River. Many Dao fruits would appear in each of his battles. However, he had never seen such a high-grade Dao fruit. To the current Ning fan, the medicinal effect of an ordinary Dao fruit was too low. However, if it was an immortal Emperor Dao fruit, it was still not something that could be underestimated. This was just a small interlude on the battlefield. Ning Fan conveniently kept the immortal Emperor Dao fruit, and continued to immerse himself in the battle of crushing the immortal emperors of the foreign races. 9 enemies, 7 enemies, 4 enemies, 2 enemies. The number of immortal emperors of the enemy became fewer and fewer. Even the last 2 immortal emperors were killed by Ning Fan's sea-defying sword in the end. Their demon souls were refined into the 10,000 spirit blood. 22 immortal emperors of the enemy army were slaughtered by Ning Fan alone. More than 200 immortal venerables and immortal kings were slaughtered by him alone. Millions of low-grade foreign races were all burned to ashes by Ning Fan. His golden flame true body was stained with blood. Some of it was his blood while some of it was the blood of the enemies. There was even some golden-colored sovereign blood that represented the foundation of immortal emperors. He seemed to have become a devil god bathed in blood. He walked in the sea of fire and blood. The more he killed, the stronger his aura force became. After killing 22 immortal emperors in a row, his magic power temporarily rose from 13,500 tribulation to 16,000 tribulation. This was the limit of the killing technique that Ning Fan could endure with his current cultivation base. Of course, if he was willing to, he could increase the upper limit of his magic power even more at the cost of suffering some injuries. However, it seemed like there was no need for him to risk his life to such an extent in today's battle. Now there were only Daoist Xianwei, Water Buffalo God, Immortal Crane and a Huinen left as the enemies. With just the Dao Annihilation Thunder Nascent Soul, and the Undying Myriad Saints, they were already able to suppress the 4 half-step saints of the enemy army. Now that Ning Fan had also joined the battle, the half-step saints of the enemy army no longer had the slightest chance of winning. Ning Fan sealed off the great momentum of heaven and earth. It was a seal that he cast using the power of his 16,000 tribulation, and the power of the Lord of Wood, turning the surrounding battlefield into his Lord domain. This was the ability that Ning Fan had awakened after consuming his Wood Lord Void, when he was condensing his divine lattice. As Ning Fan became more and more familiar with the power of his Wood divine lattice, today was the first battle where he truly used the power of his domain. It was extremely difficult for a cultivator to escape from the domain. Even if an ancient devil opened his devil cavity, he would not be able to escape from the domain unless he destroyed the domain in advance. This was not the Lord Void that the cultivators of the later generations used. His path to becoming the Lord had long deviated from the path of a normal cultivator. This was a domain that could only be used by the orthodox Wood gods of the primeval era. It was created by the ancestors of the Paragon Void, and the Paragon Void was created by their descendants in imitation of this domain. The Palm Void needed to pull the enemy into its own void world to be effective. On the other hand, the domain of a sovereign was different. The place where Ning Fan stood was his domain. He was the absolute king of this place. There was no need to create a Palm Void, and there was no need to drag the enemy to another plane. He could become the emperor of the Wood Palm Void at any place, in any plane. Unfortunately, the time Ning Fan spent cultivating the divine spark of wood was too short. Even if he unleashes his domain, it would only have the effect of trapping his enemies. He had yet to develop more abilities. What gave him a headache was that even with his magic power of 13,500 tribulation stage, it was still very difficult for him to unleash his domain. The amount of magic power required to unleash this domain was a few times more than the amount of magic power he would need to unleash the void domain of the Palm Realm. It was only after his magic power had skyrocketed to 16,000 tribulation stage that he successfully unleashed his domain for the first time. After cultivating the divine spark, Ning Fan obtained a lot of memories about the bloodline of divine spirits. According to what he knew, the true divine domain did not only include the abilities of the Palm Void, but also the abilities of the saint rings of the 3 saints of the primordial Nirvana desolate era. Even the cross-shaped halos that he developed previously was, strictly speaking, a kind of mutated divine domain. It possessed part of the abilities of a divine domain. The divine spark was the origin of a divine spirit, while the domain was the main means of killing their enemies. The funny thing was that Daoist Xianwei and the others who had already fallen into Ningfan's domain still did not know how difficult it was to deal with a palm void domain. Seeing that Ningfan had joined the battle, Daoist Xianwei wanted to run away again out of fear. He desperately blocked an attack from laying. While borrowing the force of the attack to retreat, he tried to open the devil cavity to escape. Unfortunately, the devil cavity did not go smoothly this time. It failed halfway through opening it. Without Ningfan's permission, how could he open the devil cavity in Ningfan's domain? What's going on? This young man did not pull me into his palm void domain. He just sealed the great force of heaven and earth, and used the power of his palm void domain to reinforce the seal. Why can't I open the devil cavity? Daoist Xianwei refused to believe it. He tried more than 10 times in a row, but he still failed to open the devil cavity. Instead, he wasted a lot of his ancient devil essence qi in vain, because of his continuous attempts. Even Daoist Xianwei could not escape from Ningfan's domain, let alone the water buffalo deity and the others. Following the principle of easy first and difficult, Ningfan decided to start with the weaker water buffalo deity and the others. His eyes first locked onto the weakest water buffalo deity among the 3 of them. It was exactly because the water buffalo deity was the weakest among the 3 half-step saints of the foreign races that he was severely injured by Old Devil by that day. Even though his injuries had already been healed by Daoist Xianwei, his primordial qi was still greatly damaged. Currently, his combat power had only recovered to 90% of what it used to be. He still needed a lot of time to recuperate before he could return to his peak state. Unfortunately, he was destined not to have the chance to recuperate. Myriad Saint Dragon King had tacitly restrained Immortal Crane and a Hui Nan, giving Ningfan the chance to face the water buffalo deity alone. The water buffalo deity was not as strong as Wan Xingzi in the past. Even someone as strong as Wan Xingzi was suppressed by Ningfan. Thus, the water buffalo deity who only had 90% of his strength was definitely not a match for Ningfan. In just one round, Ningfan had killed the water buffalo deity and refined its demon soul. Then, he hung the head of the water buffalo deity, which still had a resentful expression on its face, on the waist of his true body. Then he swaggered towards the other half-sage saint, a Huinan. Ningfan was deliberately showing off his strength. Having the head of a half-step saint hanging on one's waist was enough to frighten the enemy and make them tremble in fear. Thus, they would not be able to display their full strength. The current situation was exactly what a Huinan was experiencing. Originally, he resented Ningfan because Ningfan had snatched his fiancée, his beautiful and kind Afro. Indeed, he was the one who took the initiative to offer Afro to the blood god as a sacrificial offering. Indeed, he had wronged Afro, and it was reasonable for her to be heartless towards him. However, even if Afro did not love him, she should not fall in love with a descendant of Zido. As a noble merman and a noble Ziwei immortal cultivator, how could Afro betray her faith and fall in love with a Zido immortal cultivator? A Huinan belonged to the combat faction of the Ziwei immortal cultivators. He could not tolerate Afro's betrayal. He could not forgive Ningfan, who tempted Afro to walk on the path of evil. Therefore, he originally came to kill Ningfan with a heart full of anger. However, after witnessing Ningfan kill the water buffalo deity in 100 rounds, a Huinan became afraid. He no longer had the courage to fight Ningfan. The head of the water buffalo deity, hanging on Ningfan's waist, was like the scariest thing in the world. A Huinan did not dare to look at it directly. He was already scared before the battle began. Even if a Huinan's strength was stronger than the water buffalo deity, he was not much stronger than the water buffalo deity if he really fought Ningfan. He was killed by Ningfan in just 170 rounds. His head was also hanging on Ningfan's waist. Since a Huinan was a merman, Ningfan could not help but recall the scenes that happened between him and Afro. He did not know if this a Huinan was related to Afro or not. For some reason, his heart softened and he decided to temporarily imprison a Huinan's demon soul. He owed Afro a favor. If a Huinan was Afro's closest relative, His benefactor would inevitably be sad if he destroyed his demon soul. Out of righteousness, he would not let a Hui Nan escape. Out of kindness, he decided to temporarily spare a Hui Nan's life. He would only imprison him forever and stop him from attacking the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven. Unfortunately, a Hui Nan insisted on courting death. As soon as he saw Ning Fan capturing his demon soul, he thought that he would not be able to keep his life like the water buffalo deity. Either way, he would definitely die. He did not just scold Ning Fan. He also called him a slut and a traitor, insulting Afro, who was sent to the death prison. From a Hui Nan's words, Ning Fan learned a shocking piece of news. After Afro left that day, she really came to the sixth path and was sent to the death prison because she refused a certain order from the great divine priest. The death prison, Ning Fan sighed. After all, he and Afro were two different people. Naturally, he would not go to the hinterland of the foreign races to save her after hearing that she was sent to the death prison. He did not have that ability. Also, he did not have the obligation to do so. Aphrodite was his benefactor but also his enemy. What was funny was that Ning Fan even obtained some information from a Hui Nan's words. This a Hui Nan was not someone important to Afro. This person had an engagement with Afro when they were young. However, in order to get a reward from the great divine priest of the foreign races, he actually betrayed Afro and nominated her as the sacrificial offering for the blood god Gung Wu. This person pushed Afro to the path of death. To Afro, even though he was from the same race as the merfolk, he was also her enemy. If that's the case, there's no need for me to be soft-hearted and keep you alive. Ning Fan casually refined a Hui Nan to death. Then, he joined forces with Myriad Saint Dragon King, and killed a mortal crane after hundreds of rounds. Then, with 3 heads hanging on his waist, he joined forces with the Dao Annihilation Lightning Nascent Soul, and attacked Daoist Xianwei together. Daoist Xianwei was so angry that his 3 corpse god jumped up in anger. Ning Fan was too despicable. He could not even defeat a single Dao Annihilation Lightning Nascent Soul. Now he actually wanted to fight 3 against 1. Little Ning Fan, if you have the guts, fight me one-on-one. What kind of hero is bullying someone with numbers? Daoist Xianwei cursed angrily. I want to bully someone with numbers. What can you do to me? Ning Fan sneered. He was not a fool. Why would he talk about the morality of the Jianghu with Daoist Xianwei? This Daoist Xianwei was an ancient half-step saint. It would not be easy to kill him even if it was 3 against 1. Chapter 1150. Half-saints were difficult to kill because they possessed profound abilities. Even if they couldn't defeat their enemies, they had the means to escape from the battlefield. However, if a half-step sage's path of retreat was blocked, then the half-step sage would still die. The death of the water buffalo deity and the others was proof of this. It was Ning Fan's first time using the wood palm domain. Layers of invisible walls formed by the wood palm domain sealed all the paths of retreat within the domain. Not Daoist Xianwei could escape. The transformation of Daoist Xuanwei's second stage true body could increase his magic power to 14,000 to 5,000 tribulation stage. Unfortunately, the current Ning Fan had increased his magic power to 16,000 tribulation stage by borrowing the power of the killing technique. In the previous battle, Ning Fan activated his killing technique too late. He would not make such a mistake in this battle. Even though Daoist Xuanwei's green wave fire poison was powerful, it could not withstand Ning Fan's advantage in numbers. A single Dao extermination lightning nascent soul was already enough to make him struggle bitterly. In addition to the joint attacks from Ning Fan and Myriad Saint Dragon King, he soon suffered severe injuries. However, he was an ancient half-step saint after all. Even though he was in a desperate situation, he still lived up to his name as an ancient devil. He gritted his teeth and fought Ning Fan to the death without any intention of surrendering. A day later, Daoist Xianwei was severely injured and on the verge of death, but he was still fighting with all his might. 2 days had passed. Daoist Xuanwei's flesh and blood were all dried up. Only a gigantic skeleton was left to fight against Ning Fan. His primordial spirit was attached to the skeleton, but it still did not diminish his battle intent. On the third day, Taoist Xianwei finally lost his strength. Even his skeleton was crushed by Ning Fan and the others. His primordial spirit was finally captured by Ning Fan. He didn't beg for mercy at all. He only cursed loudly, but he was regretting it in his heart. Initially, he thought that the mission of retrieving the immemorial lightning cauldron would be easy to complete. However, he did not expect that it would end up in Ning Fan's hands. Humph. Winner takes all. Just kill me. However, I, a warrior at the peak of the conferred demon realm, will definitely return. Take back your primeval thunder cauldron. Taoist Xianwei sneered. Ning Fan began to admire Taoist Xianwei a little. He had always admired those who would die unyieldingly. Even if that person was an enemy, he would still be able to obtain his respect. No wonder he was an ancient devil. This was an ancient devil. If he succumbed to the enemy, how could he be called an ancient devil? Of course, this little bit of respect was not the reason why Ning Fan spared Taoist Xianwei. If he spared this person's life, it would be the same as releasing the tiger back to the mountain. It was impossible for him to make the enemy bow down to him and submit to him wholeheartedly with just a shake of his body. That was a plot that only appeared in the mortal world. He searched Taoist Xuanwei's memories. Spirit refinement had refined Taoist Xuanwei's primordial spirit into a huge pile of myriad spirit blood. After eliminating Taoist Xianwei, Ning Fan did not immediately clean up the corpses and spoils of war on the battlefield. He extinguished the sea of fire on the ruins of the Black Tortoise Keep and sat cross-legged in the midst of the ghost flowers of the underworld. He muttered an incantation and began to cast the spell. Today he had killed more than 5 million underworld ghost flowers. Because of that, the underworld ghost flowers summoning had been upgraded from a basic summon to an advanced summon. Under the condition of advanced summoning, he could choose one of the people he killed today and turn it into an undying ghost soldier. The basic success rate of creating an undying ghost pawn was 50%. If the strength of the maker was lower than Ning Fan, the success rate would increase to a certain extent. If the maker was stronger than Ning Fan, the success rate would decrease. Because Madame Guihua's strength was far weaker than Ning Fan's, her success rate of making Ning Fan's undying ghost soldier was barely 30%. Ning Fan was thinking about who he should use to make the undying ghost soldier. His strength was far beyond Immortal Emperor Doomsday. If he uses the immortal emperors of the foreign races to make the undying ghost soldier, the success rate would be very high. It would be at least 70 to 80%. However, what use would Ning Fan have for an immortal emperor realm undying ghost soldier? It was just like chicken ribs. If he wants to make it, he should make an undying ghost soldier that could be put to use. There were 4 people that he could consider: Xianwei, Immortal Crane, a Hui Nan and Water Buffalo God. Among them, Water Buffalo God's strength was the lowest. If Ning Fan makes the undying ghost soldier of Water Buffalo God, the success rate would be around 65%. A Hui Nan had 60%. Immortal Crane had 55%. Taoist Xianwei had 30%. Using the connection between him and the ghost flowers of the underworld, Ning Fan could easily sense the success rate of each of them in making the undying ghost soldier. The undying ghost soldier that Ning Fan wanted the most was, of course, Taoist Xianwei. Unfortunately, Taoist Xuanwei's strength far surpassed his. In the previous battles, the reason why Ning Fan could fight evenly with Taoist Xianwei was because he had many tricks up his sleeves. If Taoist Xianwei did not have so many concerns during the first battle, and fought to the death like he did during the second battle, not retreating even if he was reduced to a skeleton, Ning Fan would certainly not be his match. It was only natural that the success rate would be much lower than 50%. A success rate of 30% is too low. However, if I succeed, I will also gain great benefits. Even if a half-step sage like Myriad Saint Dragon King turns into an undying ghost soldier, he would at most have the qualifications to fight a first-level half-step sage. It would be impossible for him to defeat a first-level half-step sage. However, if a half-step sage like Xianwei turns into an undying ghost soldier, he would definitely be able to crush most of the first-level half-step sage realm cultivators of the lawless era. Ning Fan pondered for a long time. Eventually, he decided to take a gamble and choose Xianwei to make the undying ghost soldier. As he activated his ability, countless specks of light suddenly appeared in the bushes of the ghost flowers of the underworld. They were like countless fireflies dancing in the air. It was extremely beautiful. Those specks of light were none other than the remnant souls of the people that Ning Fan had killed today, which were devoured by the ghost flowers of the underworld. The ghost flowers of the underworld possessed a power similar to the Fuli spirit wheel. It could ignore the laws of cultivation and allow the souls of immortal cultivators at the second step and above to not disperse after they die. However, the purpose of storing souls was different from the Fuli spirit wheel. The ghost flowers stored souls to create undying ghost soldiers, while the Fuli spirit wheel was used to create Fuli from the dead. Ning Fan was clearly making the undying ghost soldiers of the underworld ghost flowers, but at this moment, he had a new understanding of his Fuli spirit wheel. Using the Fuli spirit wheel to create Fuli was the same as creating the undying ghost soldiers. There seemed to be a lot of similarities between them. The fluorescent light that filled the sky began to condense and change. Daoist Xianwei had obviously been killed by Ning Fan. However, at this moment, his second stage true form of the 10-tailed scorpion giant slowly appeared in the fluorescent light. The undying ghost soldier was born for battle. Therefore, it was created in his strongest form. Creating the undying ghost soldier would consume a lot of mental energy. Fortunately, Ning Fan still had spirit recovering rice with him. After eating some, his mental energy would be replenished. Ning Fan noticed that there was not much spirit recovering rice left in his pocket. In the past, he had obtained a mountain of spirit recovering rice from the dark races. Unfortunately, ever since the battle with the dark races began, he had been consuming a large amount of spirit recovering rice. No matter how much spirit recovering rice he had, it would be finished one day. The remaining spirit recovering rice is probably enough for me to carry out another 4 to 5 battles at the half-step Saint Realm. When the spirit recovering rice is used up, I won't be able to activate the cross-shaped light ring indefinitely. My combat power will be greatly reduced. If I can create enough undying ghost soldiers before the spirit recovering rice is used up, I will still be able to suppress those half-step saints of the declining cultivation realm, even if I can't use the cross-shaped light ring for a long time in the future. Ning Fan's expectation towards creating the mysterious tail ghost soldier had increased. However, reality was full of drama. The more you look forward to something, the less you will get. On the contrary, you will often get unexpected gains. Ning Fan failed to create the mysterious tail ghost soldier. The success rate of 30% was too low. Even if his luck was far greater than the Doomsday Immortal King, it could only increase the success rate from 30% to 40%. 40% was still very low. Moreover, it was Ning Fan's first time creating an undying ghost soldier. He was not very familiar with the method of condensing the soul. During the process, he made more than 10 unavoidable mistakes. Under such circumstances, it was naturally impossible for him to succeed. What a pity. If I could have a strong ally like Daoist Xianwei, I would have a chance of winning even if I have to fight against a first-level quasi-saint. Ning Fan was greatly disappointed. However, his disappointment was quickly wiped away. His mind became calm and tranquil again. The chance to create ghost soldiers was only once in each battle. After using it once, the ghost flower of the netherworld would need to rest for a few days before it could produce the undying ghost soldier again. Ning Fan began to clean up the battlefield. With his current cultivation base, he cleaned up the ruins of the battlefield very quickly. There were a lot of low-grade Dao fruits and some Dao fruits of immortal venerables and immortal kings. As for the Dao fruit of immortal emperors, there was only one Dao fruit of immortal emperors. From the 22 immortal emperors of the foreign races, Ning Fan obtained 6 innate magic treasures. 2 of them were severely damaged while the other 3 were not very useful. Only the last one made Ning Fan's eyes light up. The Lane Temple bamboo fence was a connate magic treasure in the form of a bamboo fence. It was made from the famous Lane bamboo. According to the bamboo fence, it was made by a monk who guarded the vegetable garden of the Lane Temple. The area surrounded by this bamboo fence would automatically form an immortal emperor-grade defensive formation. The plants inside the formation would grow faster. This This magic treasure is suitable to be used as the bamboo fence of Shen Nong's 100 Herbs Garden. However, Ning Fan seemed to have heard the name of the Thunder Tune Temple somewhere before. It seems to be an extremely famous temple in the ancient times. Ning Fan shook his head and suppressed his distracting thoughts. Then he began to check the spoils of war that the 4 half-step saints brought to him. Heavenly Bull Eye. This was the innate Dharma eye that the water bull god cultivated for hundreds of millions of years. It could see through most of the illusory techniques of the Age of Chaos and increase the success rate of illusory techniques. The water bull god's specialty was illusory techniques. Ning Fan already knew about it when he fought against it. Unfortunately, Ning Fan's attainment in illusory techniques was much higher than the water bull god's. Thus, the water bull god's illusory techniques could not be used at all. Then how should I use this eye? Ning Fan pondered for a while and crushed both of the water bull god's eyes. Then he absorbed all the illusory power that was contained within the eyes into his left demon eye. Fu Li Yinyang seemed to have improved a lot. The defensive power and offensive power of its illusory techniques had significantly improved. Not bad. Merman Divine Pearl. This was a special pearl that only the male merman could claim to have. Female mermen could shed tears and turn into pearls. Male mermen, on the other hand, would never shed a single tear for the rest of their lives. Even though they were deprived of the right to shed tears, the male mermen could collect the tears that could not flow out from their lacrimal glands into their dantian and condense them into divine pearls. Most of the male mermen had their own merman divine pearls. However, the power of the divine pearls varied. To the male mermen, the more emotions they had, the more developed their lacrimal glands were, and the longer they lived, the more powerful their divine pearls would be. A Huinan was a half-sage merman who had lived for 80 million years. Her divine pearl was extremely powerful. Its power was already close to that of a mid-grade innate magic treasure. Of course, if this was all it had, Ning Fan would not pay much attention to this divine pearl. The divine pearl could be used as a magic treasure. At the same time, it could also be used as a tonic and a supplementary item for cultivation. Its usage was similar to the tears of the female merman. This was the pearl that was condensed from a Huinan's tears for 80 million years. If he uses it all at once, it could increase Ning Fan's absorption speed of water elemental force by 1,000 times within a few months. If he uses this divine pearl, Ning Fan was confident that he could cultivate the heavenly Goyu to a higher level within a few months. Myriad Worlds Red Dot. A drop of poison that immortal Wang cultivated with his entire life's effort was enough to kill any immortal emperor with a single blow. Its power was slightly weaker than Daoist Xuanwei's green wave fire poison, but it was not much weaker. The Crane Crown Red was a deadly poison in the mortal world. This Myriad Worlds Red, that was the Crane Crown poison that immortal Wang had cultivated since he was young. As soon as this poison was released, only a red dot could be seen flashing across heaven and earth. Immortal emperors would be poisoned to death. It was extremely powerful. It was precisely because Immortal Wang's poison technique was so powerful that Ning Fan had to spend hundreds of rounds to kill him even if he joined forces with Myriad Saint Dragon King. The world is dark. This was the strange name that Immortal Wang gave to his pair of crane wings. Most people cultivated their wings to increase their speed. Immortal Wang's wings could not only increase their speed, but also extinguish all the light in heaven and earth, plunging the world into darkness. This pair of wings actually possesses a trace of the power of a dark sovereign? Ning Fan was surprised. He extracted the power from Immortal Wang's wings and devoured it with the Dark Yin-Yang technique. The Dark Yin-Yang technique also improved slightly. The three immortals' ancestral spirit formation, and the materials needed to set it up. It was something that Ning Fan found in Daoist Xuanwei's storage pouch. It was a special formation that could summon the ancestral true spirits of the various clans in the Ziwei galaxy to the Age of Chaos. Of course, the summoned ancestors would not have the same strength as when they were at their peak. However, even if they only had a trace of their strength left, it would be enough to suppress a half-saint realm expert in the Age of Chaos. If they are ancestors with special abilities, they could even suppress the lightning of the Dao Destruction Lightning Nascent Soul. Ning Fan nodded his head. No wonder Daoist Xianwei wanted to summon the ancestral spirits to deal with me. This formation is indeed quite powerful. If I didn't sneak attack the Black Tortoise Pass and expose Daoist Xuanwei's scheme, unfortunately there are no ifs. Ning Fan smiled faintly and placed the item at his side. He would not foolishly use these formation materials to summon the ancestors of the various clans in the Ziwei Galaxy. The summoned ancestors had their own consciousness. They would not obey his orders. Instead, they might attack him as soon as they appeared because of his identity as Zido's descendant. There were a number of immemorial devil medicines. Ning Fan had obtained quite a few immemorial devil medicines that could strengthen the physical body. Other than that, there were also a large number of immemorial devil medicines that could heal injuries. It was the poison sac of the green wave fire poison. It was the item that made Daoist Xianwei famous. It was the poison power that was stored in his body. Previously, Ning Fan's poison power only contained a trace of the green wave fire poison. If he directly devours the poison sac of Daoist Xianwei, his poison power would increase tremendously. The lost ancient devil scroll. This was the thing that Ning Fan valued the most in Daoist Xuanwei's body. It was not just because there were tens of lost grade ancient devil abilities recorded in it. It was not just because it mentioned the ancient theory of compatibility between abilities. What's more, among these divine abilities was one of the most famous secret arts of the ancient demon clan, the ancient demon devil art. In the past, the Blackwing Great Devil who suddenly descended upon the divine tomb had used the devil cavity to travel across the starry sky and arrive at the eastern heaven. This time, Daoist Xianwei had also used the devil cavity to travel from the northern heaven to the eastern heaven. The devil cavity was really heaven-defying. If Ning Fan learns the devil cavity, he wouldn't need to travel through the realm river anymore. He could directly travel across the starry sky through the passage of the devil cavity. This technique was worth learning. The devil cavity is divided into 3 grades: low grade, mid grade and high grade. The low grade devil cavity can allow the user to travel across all medium-sized worlds. The mid grade devil cavity can allow the user to travel across all boundless worlds. The high-grade devil cavity can allow the user to travel across samsara. Travel across samsara. What is that? It sounds really powerful. The low-grade devil cavity requires the cultivator to be an ancient devil who possesses at least 1 drop of ancestral blood. At the same time, the cultivator must cultivate the power of space to the critical point of the sovereign realm. The critical point of the sovereign realm? This requirement is a little too high, isn't it? Even if it is not the true sovereign realm, it is still not something that any ancient devil can cultivate. Ning Fan sighed softly. His understanding of the power of space did not seem to be very profound. The Void Emperor of the Godly Void Pavilion had an extremely high understanding of the power of space. His master, Xiang Bozi, had an even higher understanding of the power of space. However, even the two of them had not cultivated the power of space to the critical point of the sovereign realm. How could it be so easy to cultivate the power of space? Space and time were the 2 most difficult sovereign realms to cultivate since ancient times. Naturally, Ning Fan did not have the ability to do so. He helplessly realized that he had yet to meet the requirements to cultivate the low-grade devil cavity. Wait. Something doesn't seem right. Be it the Blackwing Great Devil in the past or Daoist Xianwei this time. Both of them could use the devil cavity. Could it be that both of them have an extremely profound understanding of the power of space? The Blackwing Great Devil seemed to be a great cultivator from the ancient times. Ning Fan would not find it strange even if he had cultivated the power of space to such a high level. However, Daoist Xianwei was just a half-step Saint Realm cultivator. How could he possibly have such a high innate talent in the power of space? If Daoist Xianwei really had such a high innate talent in the power of space, how could he possibly be trapped by the domain of the sovereign realm, and not be able to escape by tearing the space apart? The critical point of the sovereign realm. That was an expert who was just a step away from attaining the sovereign realm. However, Daoist Xianwei did not seem to have a profound understanding of the power of space at all. Could it be that cultivating the power of space to the critical point of the sovereign realm is just a sufficient, but not a necessary condition to cultivate the devil cavity? Or perhaps Daoist Xuanwei's devil cavity was not the original devil cavity at all. It was just a weakened version which could not even be considered as a low-grade devil cavity. Ning Fan felt that he had grasped the truth. The true devil cavity had already reached the critical point of the sovereign realm. It was impossible for him to seal it. The true devil cavity was also not something that the current Ning Fan could cultivate. He could roughly guess that what Daoist Xianwei cultivated was a weakened version of the devil cavity. Unfortunately, he could not find the cultivation method of the weakened version from Daoist Xianwei. Even if it was a weakened version of the devil cavity, it would still be good. Ning Fan could not meet the requirements to cultivate the original devil cavity at all. He really wanted to learn a weakened version of the devil cavity, and directly traveled to the northern heaven to have a look. Ding ding ding. That just as Ning Fan was sighing, Emperor Tsong's call suddenly rang. Chapter 1151. The Boundary Steel Pass was the second impregnable pass of the sixth waterway. Its scale was magnificent, second only to the main pass, the Black Tortoise Pass. It was famous because there was an ancient tablet written by a quasi-saint guarding this pass. Almost more than 40% of the Realm River Alliance's forces were gathered here. Emperor Tsong and the only 9 tribulations immortal emperor in the alliance, Old Demon White, were also there. At this moment, Emperor Tsong and more than 10,000 old monsters were holding a small meeting inside the Boundary Steel Pass. All the 10,000 old monsters had gloomy expressions. Even Old Devil White, who had just defeated the foreign races in the Boundary River, had an ugly expression on his face. The content of the meeting was to discuss how to deal with the 4 half-saints of the Sixth Path. A few days ago, an Eastern Sky Quasi-Emperor had risked his life to go to Black Tortoise Mountain Pass to gather information on the 4th Semi-Sage. As a result, he had been discovered by that Semi-Sage, and had been killed on the spot in Black Tortoise Mountain Pass. His flesh and blood had been divided up and eaten by the strange races. Fortunately, that Eastern Sky Quasi-Emperor's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. He just so happened to have a type of divine ability. Once he died, he could transmit the fragments of the battle back to the array formation he had arranged before his death. Therefore, Emperor Tsong and the others saw the scene of Daoist Xianwei killing the Eastern Sky Quasi-Emperor. Whether it was Emperor Tsong or Old Devil Bai, neither of them were cultivators who had lived since the ancient times. Just by looking at some of the battle footage, it was impossible for them to determine Daoist Xuanwei's identity and origin. They could only roughly tell that this person had the strength of a semi-sage or above. But Great Emperor Chong he recognized Daoist Xianwei. The waterways that Emperor Chong he had been on had already been conquered, so he was transferred to the 6th route. Having an old man at home is like having a treasure. No matter what, Great Emperor Chonghe was also an old man of the same generation as Ancient Chaos Heavenly Emperor. Even if he deliberately hid his strength and didn't reveal much of it to the outside world, he was still able to gain the respect of the majority of Eastern Sky's old monsters. Emperor Chonghe's face turned pale when he saw that this half-saint was Daoist Xianwei, the general of the Demon Conferral Summit. When the crowd asked for the reason, Great Emperor Chonghe told them about Daoist Xuanwei's background. When they found out that Daoist Xianwei had even poisoned a quasi-saint to death, how could they remain calm and composed? Was there anyone in the Boundary Steel who could rival Daoist Xianwei? What should we do? Even if the enemy has an ordinary half-saint, it would still be difficult for us to deal with them. I didn't expect that the 4th half-saint is actually not an ordinary person, but the renowned Daoist Xianwei. Although I'm conceited, I know that I'm not a match for that Daoist Xianwei. Legend has it that Daoist Xuanwei's strongest ability is the art of poison. Everyone might not know this, but this old man's weakness is also the art of poison. If the enemy is an ordinary poison cultivator, this old man can still rely on his strength to crush and defeat him. However, if it's a poison cultivator of the mysterious tail level, Old Devil Bai let out a long sigh. If they were to fight against the foreign races in the future, as the strongest expert in the Boundary Steel Pass, he would definitely have to fight against Daoist Xianwei. He wasn't even a match for Daoist Xianwei in a one-on-one fight. It would be extremely difficult for the others to deal with the remaining 3 half-saints of the alien race. Fellow Taoist 8 Scenery and fellow Taoist Rahu have received the news and are rushing over from the third route. Fellow Taoist 8 Scenery is a veteran 8th Tribulation Immortal Emperor. Fellow Taoist Rahu has just become a sovereign recently, although his realm has just stabilized. According to fellow Taoist 8 Scenery, his combat strength has already surpassed the majority of 8th Tribulation Immortal Emperors. He's even stronger than Sun Luo, who opened the incipient Saint Ring back then. If these 2 fellow Taoists come to help, I'm sure we'll be able to relax a lot. Emperor Jin Hung of the Taurus Palace said. It's indeed a good thing to have these 2 coming to help. Unfortunately, it's still not enough. Someone sighed. Fellow Taoist Void and fellow Taoist Shenkong have also received the news and are rushing over here. Emperor Shensu and Emperor Shensu are experts in joint attacks. Even if they can't match a half-saint, they can still restrain one of them for a short period of time and share some of the pressure for fellow Taoist White, said the veteran immortal Emperor Yellow Turban of the Eastern Sky. Sigh. That's all in the past. The current Emperor Shun Su has suffered severe injuries, and his cultivation base has fallen. He only has a 7th Tribulation Realm cultivation base now. The destructive power of his joint attack with Emperor Void has also been greatly reduced. Now it's a little difficult for the 2 of them to stop a half-saint. However, if they can come, it will indeed greatly improve the overall strength of our boundary steel. Another person shook his head and said, as expected, fellow Taoist Ning is the only one we can rely on. Someone sighed with emotion. Currently, Ning Fan's strength was publicly recognized as the strongest person in the Realm River Alliance. However, one should know that the Battle of the Realm River had just begun less than 10 years ago. What was Ning Fan's situation like 10 years ago? At that time, the Eastern Sky was not facing a crisis. At that time, the cultivators of the Eastern Sky were not united yet. At that time, Ning Fan was still being chased by the Dark Race. Among the old monsters present, there were many who had tried to curry favor with the Dark Race and secretly targeted Ning Fan. Even those who remained neutral usually did not have a good impression of Ning Fan. However, 10 years later, when the crisis of the Eastern Sky arrived, Ning Fan actually became everyone's hope. He became the strongest barrier of the Realm River Alliance. With his outstanding achievements, countless cultivators in the Alliance admired and worshipped him. His reputation was extremely high, and it was even higher than Emperor Tsong, who was the leader of the Alliance. How could they not sigh with emotion? When will fellow Taoist Ning come? If he comes, a mere Taoist Xianwei is nothing. I just received another news from the 9th Path. This Taoist Xianwei seems to have appeared in the battlefield of the 9th Path, and was even defeated by fellow Taoist Ning. At that time, fellow Taoist Ning's Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul directly crushed Taoist Xianwei. What? Fellow Taoist Ning's Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul actually crushed Taoist Xianwei? That's impossible, right? That Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul seems to only have a cultivation base of around the half-saint realm. Even though it's considered powerful, it's still not enough to crush a half-saint realm expert of the ancient era. I heard that the Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul was riding an ancestral lightning sparrow. The lightning power between the 2 of them fused together. Therefore, the Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul could display its strength several times. It's really unheard of to fight for a sparrow and improve one's strength. This old man has heard of it. In the ancient era, many cultivators brought their mounts to battle. It seems to be a very common thing. To us cultivators of the cultivation-ending era, riding a mount may only be a means of transportation. However, some ancient factions seem to know some secret techniques that can be used with a mount to increase one's strength. This principle is similar to how a general in the mortal world can borrow the horsepower of a warhorse to greatly increase his strength. The quality of a warhorse can sometimes become the deciding factor in a life-and-death battle between mortals. That Taoist Xianwei was defeated by fellow Taoist Ning once in the 9th Path. Now that he's in the 6th Path, it's highly possible that he has already thought of a way to restrain the Tao Extermination Lightning Nascent Soul. We must be careful. If the opponent really has some kind of arrangement, It's hard to say whether fellow Taoist Ning can defeat Taoist Xian Wei again this time. Sigh, when will the chaos of the Boundary River be pacified? Every day, I see my close friends and disciples dying one by one, yet I'm powerless to stop it. This old man feels a little sad. Fellow Taoist Lin is also someone who is used to seeing slaughter. It's really surprising that you're so sentimental. Sigh, this old man's state of mind is indeed lacking. However, if there's peace, who would be willing to be mired in the swamp of war? I still prefer the Boundary River that used to be calm and tranquil. When fellow Taoist Ning arrives, he might have a way to completely reclaim the sixth path. When will fellow Taoist Ning arrive? I heard that he had already set off from the ninth path 10 days ago. Why hasn't he arrived yet? Why don't you contact fellow Taoist Ning and see where he is now? Maybe he encountered some trouble on the way and was delayed. If there's really trouble, we can also send people to rescue him. Cough cough. Given fellow Taoist Ning's strength, why would he need our help? I'm just doing it out of concern. As soon as Ning Fan was mentioned, the pressure on the group of old monsters of the eastern sky suddenly lessened. The dark cloud that shrouded their hearts slightly dispersed. They deeply believed that as long as Ning Fan comes to their rescue, they would have a way to deal with the foreign race's half-step saints, no matter how many of them there are. Emperor Tsong listened to the advice of some old monsters and began to contact Ning Fan. He was also a little worried that Ning Fan might encounter some trouble on the way. After all, he already knew that Ning Fan could travel freely in the Boundary River without the help of a battle boat. Based on his speed, he should have reached the sixth path a few days ago. However, he had yet to arrive even after such a long time. Ding ding ding. It was Emperor Tsong's voice transmitting Jade Talisman. He was trying to get in touch with Ning Fan. Buzz buzz buzz. It was the sound of successfully contacting Ning Fan. However, due to the interference of the magnetic force of the Realm River, the effect of the voice transmission was not very ideal. Sometimes, it would be accompanied by a buzzing noise. This was very annoying, but with Grey Deity's cultivation, he had no way to change it. Alliance Master, are you looking for me? Ning Fan's voice resounded from the other end of the Jade Talisman. Ning Fan roughly knew that the Heaven Emperor was looking for him for official business. In private, he would directly address Tsong Di as Dao brother, but when it came to official matters, he would address Tsong Di as alliance leader to show respect. Yes. You've already left the ninth path for 10 days, but you still haven't reached the Boundary Steel. The other fellow Taoists and I are worried that you might have run into some trouble on the way. Upon hearing what he said, Ning Fan's laughter seemed to resound from the other end of the Jade Talisman. It was the laughter of someone who was in a good mood. It wasn't just because he had just experienced a great victory and crushed the Black Tortoise Pass with his own strength. Moreover, because Emperor Tsong and the others cared for him from the bottom of their hearts, he felt warmth. Among the first 10 Eastern Sky cultivators, 9 of them were hostile towards Ning Fan because Ning Fan's reputation was just too bad. Today, however, it was different. Ning Fan and countless old monsters of the Eastern Sky had become comrades and comrades in arms. It was a relationship where they shed their blood together. It was a relationship where men entrusted their lives to each other. They were men who guarded the Eastern Sky together. Ning Fan was not sure about those cultivators of the Eastern Sky who did not participate in the battle. At least, he could no longer find anyone who was hostile towards him among the allied forces of the Realm River Alliance. On the battlefield, they were comrades who entrusted their lives to Ning Fan. If the battle ends and they return to the Eastern Sky, they would not become enemies again. Instead, they would retain their comrades-in-arms relationship. You seem to be in a good mood? You don't seem to have run into any trouble, right? That's good. Knowing that Ning Fan was safe and sound, Tsong Di heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. All the old monsters at the scene were infected by Ning Fan's laughter from the Jade Talisman. The pressure they felt was instantly reduced. It was as if they no longer had to worry about their current predicament as long as they heard Ning Fan's voice. Since you didn't meet with any trouble on the way, hurry up and come to the Boundary Steel Pass. We're still waiting for you to come up with a plan to teach the foreign races a lesson. Emperor Tsong said. This might not work. I can't send my clone to the Boundary Steel Pass right now. I have to stay at the Mystic Martial Pass for now. Before Ning Fan could finish his words, all the old monsters present had already sucked in a cold breath. What did they hear? Ning Fan said that he was currently at the Black Tortoise Gate. What kind of joke was this? Did he not want to live anymore? He actually snuck into the Black Tortoise Pass alone? Sneaked into the territory of the non-human kind? What? Why didn't you tell me earlier that you were hiding in the Black Tortoise Gate? You want to cooperate with us and break through the Black Tortoise Gate in one fell swoop? I don't know how you managed to sneak into the Black Martial Gate. Quickly cut off the communication. Don't let the half-saint of the Black Martial Gate detect you. Once they find out that you're in the Black Tortoise Gate, you'll be in great danger. However, this is also an opportunity, an excellent opportunity for us to coordinate with each other from the inside and outside. Emperor Tsong's powerful imagination had already conjured up a scene in his mind. The reason why Ning Fan had yet to arrive at the Boundary Steel Pass was because he had secretly sneaked into the inner part of the Black Tortoise Gate. To ordinary people, wanting to sneak into the Black Tortoise Gate without being detected by the 4 half-saint experts of the non-human kind was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, to Ning Fan, it was not an impossible task. Ning Fan definitely wanted to cooperate with them and take back the Black Tortoise Gate in one fell swoop. That was why he deliberately sneaked into the Black Tortoise Gate. No wonder he had yet to arrive. It turned out that he was actually planning such a dangerous thing. A moment of carelessness and he would be attacked by all the experts of the Black Tortoise Gate together and die without a burial place. Emperor Tsong thought of this possibility in his mind. In an instant, he actually felt a little touched. The eyes of the handsome young man were filled with tears. He was touched that Ning Fan did not hesitate to take the risk in order to protect the Eastern Heaven. This action was too similar to that half-saint emperor, who sacrificed himself for the greater good. In the ancient times, there were many people who lamented and sang sorrowful songs. The ancients did not deceive me. They did not deceive me. How intelligent were the other old monsters of the Eastern Heaven? In an instant, they also imagined Ning Fan's various plans of sneaking into the Black Tortoise Gate and attempting to break through the gate by coordinating with each other from the inside and outside. All of a sudden, Ning Fan's position in everyone's hearts became even more majestic. His selfless character and persistence towards the greater good had touched the hearts of the iron-blooded men one after another. In the cold and selfish cultivation world, how many people would dare to sacrifice their bodies and sneak into the enemy's hinterland for the rise and fall of the world? How courageous! How hot-blooded! That was what a man should be like. From the beginning to the end, not a single one of them thought that Ning Fan sneaked into the Black Tortoise Gate to fight against 10,000 enemies and attack the Black Tortoise Gate head-on. What was even more unexpected was that Ning Fan had already flattened the entire Black Tortoise Gate and annihilated all the foreign races in this place. None of the 4 half-saint realm enemies managed to escape. It's not what you think it is. On the other side of the Jade Talisman, Ning Fan felt that Emperor Tsong and the others had misunderstood something. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. This is what happened. 3 days ago, I arrived at the 6th water path. Then I seized the opportunity and broke through the Black Tortoise Gate. Because it's very difficult for me to repair the formation of the Black Tortoise Gate in a short period of time with my strength alone, I was afraid that the enemy would come back and occupy this gate again. Therefore, I temporarily can't leave and I have to guard this place. Silence. It was as silent as death. Be it Emperor Tsong or Old Devil Bai, all of them were dumbfounded. They were shocked by the shocking content that Ning Fan said in a calm tone. Alliance Lord, quickly move the main forces of the Boundary Steel to the Black Tortoise Gate. Only by rebuilding the Black Tortoise Gate and repairing the formation can this gate be considered to have completely returned to the hands of the Eastern Sky cultivators. Ning Fan suggested. Silence. It was still as silent as death. Emperor Tsong was the first to recover from his shock. His expression was extremely interesting. He said to Ning Fan with a very serious tone, "Be more serious. The matter of the Black Tortoise Gate is related to the situation of the 6th water path, and the success or failure of the Boundary River. You can't joke around. He felt that Ning Fan was just joking when he said that he would take back the Black Tortoise Gate. The other old monsters of the Eastern Sky also felt that Ning Fan was joking. None of them thought that Ning Fan could crush the enemy's 4 half-saint realm experts, 22 immortal emperors and more than 200 immortal venerables and immortal kings on his own, and flatten the Black Tortoise Gate. It was too fantastical. Even a quasi-saint realm expert might not be able to do it. Wasn't there a famous Taoist Xianwei among the 4 half-saint realm experts of the enemy? He had even poisoned a quasi-saint realm expert to death. How powerful was he? Moreover, this person might have already found a way to deal with the Tao Annihilation Lightning nascent soul. How could he let Ning Fan break through the gate so easily? I'm very serious. Ning Fan's slightly helpless voice resounded from the other end of the Jade Talisman. He knew that the things he had done would make countless people suffer a great blow. But what can he do about it? I'm strong. It's all my fault. You should know that there are many existences in the foreign races who are much stronger than me. There's also the blood god Gengwu. If you know that the foreign races have the blood god Gengwu, I'm afraid you will directly feel despair about the future of the Eastern Sky. Sure enough, the matter about the blood god Gengwu should not be talked about recklessly. It would really shake the morale of the army. However, it was also undeniable that this would cause Emperor Tsong and the others to misjudge the strategy of pacifying the Boundary River. Did you really take back the Black Tortoise Gate all by yourself? This question was not asked by Emperor Tsong, but by Old Devil White, who had the reputation of the Azure Sky White Jade Building. Unlike the others, Old Devil White did not doubt the authenticity of Ning Fan's words at all. His personality was similar to Ning Fan's. If he had sufficient strength, he would also dare to attack the enemy alone and flatten the Black Tortoise Gate. The problem was that he did not have that strength. Previously, when he was besieged by 3 half-saint realm experts, he was actually at a disadvantage. Out of desperation, he took the risk and revealed a flaw. Fortunately, the water buffalo god fell for it. That was how he managed to severely injure the unlucky water buffalo god. The cultivators of the Eastern Sky admired him even more because of this battle achievement. Because of this, the enemies were also more vigilant against him. Only Old Devil White himself knew that the same battle achievement could not be replicated for the second time. If he is besieged by the water buffalo god and the other 2 half-saint realm experts again, they will definitely not fall for it again. As for him, he would also be defeated by the 3 half-saint realm experts due to his lack of strength. He did not have the strength to fight against the 3 half-saint realm experts. He also did not have the strength to defeat the 4 half-saint realm experts, including Taoist Xianwei. If there are another 22 immortal emperors, 200 immortal venerables and immortal kings besieging him, Old Devil White broke out in cold sweat just thinking about it. Could Ning Fan really do it? If that's the case, Ning Fan was not just a little bit stronger than him. He had always thought that even though Ning Fan was stronger than him, his strength was limited. Yes. Ning Fan had no choice but to answer again. We need to prove it. This is a serious matter. We mustn't play around with it. Old Devil White's voice trembled a little. That's easy. I will send part of the recording of this battle to them. Ning Fan had no choice but to send part of the recording of this battle to them. However, some of the information related to the ghost flower of the Netherworld were hidden, making the recording obviously look like it had been edited and was not complete. Even so, it was enough for Emperor Tsong and the others to confirm the authenticity of Ning Fan's words. Through the recording, Ning Fan's invincible figure of crushing the foreign races was deeply imprinted in the eyes of each and every Eastern Sky cultivator. It cannot be faked. Ning Fan really destroyed the Black Tortoise Pass with just his strength alone. After a moment of dead silence, the group of old monsters suddenly began to cheer to vent the ecstasy in their hearts. Just a moment ago, they were still worrying about attacking the Black Tortoise Pass. At the next moment, they directly received the news that the Black Tortoise Pass had already been destroyed. How could they not be happy? Ning Fan was definitely the biggest contributor to the Boundary River meeting. Ning Fan was indeed the hope of the Eastern Sky. He was too reliable. The report of the battle in the Black Tortoise Pass quickly spread across the boundary steel pass. Very soon, the pass fell into a sea of cheers. Emperor Tsong and the others were overjoyed. However, they also knew that the most important thing at this moment was not to celebrate, but to mobilize troops to enter the Black Tortoise Pass. They had to repair the formation of the Black Tortoise Pass and link all the formations of the passes into one. In this way, it would be unprecedentedly difficult for the immortal emperors of the foreign races to come out of the water. In this way, the plan to repair the immortal sovereign's seal and completely seal the foreign races could also be carried out. The chaos of the boundary river would be settled soon. Great joy! Great joy! Of course, there were also some people who were not so happy. Old Devil White seemed to have been petrified. He stood on the same spot as if he had suffered a heavy blow. It was not that he was not happy about this victory. It was just that the blow he received was too deep and too heavy. The former number 1 devil of the eastern sky was not only surpassed by the later generations, but also surpassed by a few streets. That kind of feeling was really unpleasant. Brother White, are you all right? Emperor Jin Hung saw the abnormality of Old Devil White and asked with a sigh. I'm fine. Let me take a break. Just let me take a break. I'm old. I'm really old. The younger generation will surpass us in time. There is no ship that can accommodate this old man in the torrent of the new era. The new waves of the Yangtze River push the old waves. I really can't not admit that I'm old. This era is no longer the era of me, Bai Yulo, nor is it the Sun Luo era that has passed. It doesn't belong to Emperor Tsong, the Taurus Palace or the Godly Void Pavilion. This era is called Ningfan. It's called Ningfan. Old Devil White said with a heavy blow. After the blow, he also felt gratified and relieved. His state of mind had improved. It turned out that his state of mind had always been restrained by the false title of the number 1 devil of the eastern sky. When Ning Fan completely shattered this false title, Old Devil White finally felt how broad the path of cultivation was in front of him, and how limited his vision was all along. His path to the quasi-saint realm seemed to be a little clearer now. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.